Chapter 2275. Needless to say, Yi Xian felt a headache coming on. Why did those super forces like to exterminate an entire clan? Did they make themselves look awesome when they said they would exterminate an entire clan? A truly ruthless person would never speak ruthlessly. For example, Qing could destroy the entire universe if he was displeased. Suddenly, the black-robed old man said, "Do you dare to introduce yourself?" Yi Xian glanced at the black-robed old man and said, "Yang clan. My father is Sword Master Yang Yi. He likes to wear a green robe. It's easy to recognize him." Yang clan. The black-robed old man frowned slightly because he had never heard of it. Yi Xian smiled and said, "You've never heard of it, right?" The black-robed old man glanced at Yi Xian and said, "I've never heard of it. Where is the Yang clan?" Yi Xian kept silent. Where is the Yang clan? He really didn't know. He was ashamed. He was the young master of the Yang clan, but he didn't know where the Yang clan was. It was really ridiculous. At this moment the black-robed old man mocked. "What? You don't dare to say it?" Yi Xian said seriously, "It's not that I don't want to say it. I really don't know." The mocking smile on the black-robed old man's face widened. "Do you think I'll believe you?" Yi Xian was speechless. What the hell? I can't be an honest man, can I? At this moment, a middle-aged man by the black-robed old man's side said in a low voice, "This kid isn't simple. We can't underestimate him." The black-robed old man kept silent. He knew that Yi Xian wasn't simple. He was so young but had such terrifying strength. How could he be an ordinary person? After all, the higher one cultivated, the more resources they needed. Ordinary independent cultivators couldn't reach this level. Even if they could, they would be old monsters that had lived for tens of thousands of years. They had to endure and endure. But Yi Xian was too young. He wouldn't believe that such a person didn't have a powerful force behind him. Of course he wasn't afraid. Heavenly Monster Tribe had never been afraid of anyone. Thinking of this, the black-robed old man looked at Yi Xian. "Pianson, you hold him back. The rest of you kill this bastard with me." The middle-aged man by the black-robed old man's side nodded slightly. He gazed at Yi Xian and was about to attack. Suddenly, numerous powerful auras appeared here, and then Dao Ling and the others appeared here. When Yi Xian saw Dao Ling and the others, he was stunned. Because he discovered that Dao Ling and the others had all become Time Immortals. Time Immortal. Yi Xian was incomparably shocked. He looked at Dao Ling, who was the leader, and asked in astonishment, "You all reached the Time Immortal stage so quickly?" Dao Ling was a little displeased. "Why? Do you think we're all idiots in your heart?" Yi Xian smiled and said, "No, I'm just a little shocked. You guys are a little too fast." Dao Ling laughed. "I told you that you would be shocked." "Huh?" Yi Xian nodded slightly. "I'm afraid I can't defeat you with one strike now. I'll need 2 strikes. Dao Ling and the others' expressions froze. Seeing Dao Ling and the others, the black-robed old man frowned slightly. "Who are you?" Dao Ling smiled. "Brothers abandoned by heaven." The black-robed old man was so angry that he laughed. "Interesting. Since when does a nobody dare to interfere with the internal affairs of my heavenly monster tribe?" Dao Ling laughed. "Old man, cut the crap. Let's fight." As he spoke, he charged towards the black-robed old man. As he charged, a terrifying force suddenly swept out of Dao Ling's body. Then a Dharma form appeared behind Dao Ling. This Dharma form was hundreds of thousands of zhang long. It really spanned across the galaxy and was incomparably huge. Dao Ling grinned. "Old man, eat my fist." As he spoke, he punched out fiercely. Behind him, the Dharma form suddenly punched out. In an instant, the entire starry sky was destroyed. A terrifying force swept across the entire starry sky. It was extremely terrifying. Seeing the incoming punch, the black-robed old man's expression instantly turned solemn. Another monstrous genius had arrived. He didn't dare to be careless. Immediately he leaped up. Behind him, the virtual image of the demonic beast suddenly appeared. The next moment he roared angrily and directly charged towards Dao Ling. Rumble. In the starry sky, 2 terrifying forces collided. In an instant, an even more powerful force exploded in the starry sky. In an instant, the starry sky within a radius of millions of zhang boiled and burned. Then it was annihilated. Yi Xian's mind flickered. A wave of sword aura directly blocked the shockwaves of the two's forces. At this moment, Shi Tian walked to Yi Xian's side. He looked at the black-robed old man and the others in the distance. Heavenly monster tribe still won't let Xianxia go? Xian nodded. A cold light flashed in Shi Tian's eyes, but he didn't speak. In the distance, Dao Ling and the black-robed old man fought fiercely. The black-robed old man couldn't suppress Dao Ling. Of course, Dao Ling couldn't do anything to the black-robed old man either. This was because the black-robed old man's physical body was extremely strong. Dao Ling couldn't break his defense at all. Xian glanced at the two of them. He had a rough understanding of the reincarnated walker's strength. If it were him, he wouldn't be able to do anything to the black-robed old man if he didn't use slash into nothingness. In fact, he missed the green profound sword. If he had the green profound sword in his hand, coupled with his current slash into nothingness, he was confident that he could kill the black-robed old man with one slash. What a pity. After fighting for a while, the heavenly monster tribe's experts' faces gradually turned ugly. This was because they realized that the strength of the few people in front of them had far exceeded their expectations. At this moment, the middle-aged man in the lead, Tianxin, suddenly said, "Call for help. Call for help." He had already analyzed the situation. With their current strength, they couldn't do anything to the few people in front of them. Moreover, he realized that these young people were a little fearless. They knew about the heavenly monster tribe, but they weren't afraid of them. It was terrifying to think about it. Hearing Tianxin's words, an expert of the heavenly monster tribe beside him took out a token. The token flew up into the sky and was about to enter the starry sky. Suddenly, a ray of sword light slashed the token. Bang! The token was directly slashed into pieces. Tianxin turned to look at Xian. Xian smiled faintly. "You want to call for help?" Tianxin looked at Xian. "What? Are you afraid?" Xian shook his head. "I'm not afraid, but why should I ask you to call for help?" As he spoke, he suddenly said, "Brothers, let's beat them up." As soon as he finished speaking, he charged towards Tianxin. Tianxin's face instantly turned gloomy when he saw Xian attack. Are all the young people nowadays so arrogant? Tianxin didn't waste his breath and vanished on the spot. Bang! A strand of terrifying force swept through the surroundings. Pure physical strength. In the distance, Xian's eyes were filled with fighting spirit. He had just broken through, so he wanted to fight to his heart's content. When Xian and Tianxin fought, Zhou Xian and Shi Tian, who stood by his side, charged towards the 4-time immortals. As soon as they fought, Zhou Xian and Shi Tian completely suppressed the experts of the heavenly demon race. No, it should be called beating them up. They were invincible amongst their peers. Both Zhou Xian and Shi Tian were monstrous geniuses amongst monstrous geniuses. Coupled with the help of old Jun and the others, ordinary time immortals weren't a match for them after they became time immortals. Seeing that his time immortal experts were being suppressed, Tianxin, who was fighting against Xian, had an ugly expression on his face. Xian and the others might not be able to deal with the two samsara walkers, but the time immortal experts they had brought with them were clearly not a match for Xian and the others. It wouldn't be long before these time immortals would be killed. They weren't a match for them at all. When he thought up to here, Tianxin didn't have the heart to continue fighting. His figure shook and he retreated over 30 kilometers away. He just pulled away from Xian when he immediately took out a token and crushed it. Bang! A mysterious force vanished in the depths of the boundless starry sky. Xian glanced at the depths of the starry sky and fell silent. These people really don't care about martial virtue. They call for help at the slightest provocation. How shameless. Tianxin stared coldly at Xian. "You'll pay for what you've done today." Xian roared with laughter. "Cut the crap. Let's fight." As soon as he finished speaking, he charged towards Tianxin. A strand of sword light suddenly tore through the battlefield. A wisp of viciousness flashed through Tianxin's eyes. He suddenly charged forward and punched at Xian. This punch caused the space before him to cave in and be obliterated. Rumble. Xian was blasted over 30 kilometers away by this terrifying force. Tianxin was just about to follow up with another attack when numerous strands of sword light suddenly appeared around him. Tianxin's eyes narrowed slightly, and he suddenly swept his right hand horizontally. Rumble. Those strands of sword light were blasted into pieces. Meanwhile, Xian suddenly appeared above Tianxin, and then a sword slashed down. The sky was torn apart. Tianxin raised his head swiftly and blocked with his arms. Rumble. An expanse of sword light was blasted apart, and Tianxin was blasted over 30 kilometers away. As soon as he stopped, Yi Xian appeared above him once more, and then he slashed down with his sword once more. Tianxin suddenly roared furiously and stomped his right foot. Bang! Everywhere his foot landed, space collapsed and was obliterated. On the other hand, Tianxin shot into the sky and collided with Yi Xian's terrifying sword strike. Rumble! An expanse of sword light was blasted apart in the depths of the starry sky, and then Yi Xian and Tianxin retreated repeatedly, and they retreated for over 100 kilometers. After Tianxin stopped, he glanced at his body. His body was densely covered in scars and they'd even broken his skin, but his bones weren't injured. Tianxin's face instantly turned unsightly when he saw this. He looked at Yi Xian with a vicious look in his eyes. Die! As soon as he finished speaking, he clenched his right hand and was about to attack. However, Yi Xian suddenly vanished on the spot. However, his target wasn't Tianxin, but the black-robed old man who was fighting Dao Ling. Zhou Xian and Shi Tian suddenly gave up on the time immortals and charged at the black-robed old man. In an instant it became 5 against 1. Rumble! The black-robed old man didn't even have time to react before he was blasted away. He flew for over 100 kilometers, and as soon as he stopped, his body was blasted apart. The black-robed old man was slightly stunned. He looked at Yi Xian and the others and his voice trembled. What the fuck is wrong with all of you? 7017K. Chapter 2276. Needless to say, he was completely stunned. He hadn't expected that Yi Xian and the others would suddenly besiege him together. It's too absurd. How can it be played like this? It wasn't just the black-robed old man, even Tianxin and the others were bewildered. They were fighting just fine, so why had Yi Xian and the others suddenly changed targets? Yi Xian glanced at the black-robed old man and said, "Let's fight on our own." As soon as he finished speaking, he charged towards Tianxin while Shi Tian and Zhou Xian charged towards the other time immortals instead. The black-robed old man's expression instantly became unsightly when he witnessed this scene. What the hell? Meanwhile, Dao Ling spoke abruptly, "Come, let's continue." As soon as he finished speaking, he charged towards the black-robed old man. On the other hand, Tianqi was recuperating. His injuries from the battle with the black-robed old man weren't light. The black-robed old man and Dao Ling entered into battle once more. But this time the black-robed old man was slightly on the verge of collapse. Because he had no choice but to divert a portion of his energy to guard against Yi Xian and the others. He was really afraid that Yi Xian and the others would suddenly change targets while they were fighting. Because he was absent-minded and wasn't able to concentrate, Dao Ling was actually gradually gaining the upper hand. On the other side, Yi Xian was gradually gaining the upper hand in the battle with Tianxin. Up until now, he still hadn't executed Sever the Void. After he broke through, he wanted to release himself. Battle was the best way to do that. Tianxin had gradually noticed Yi Xian's intentions, but he couldn't do anything about it. Moreover, he was able to sense that Yi Xian hadn't utilized his full strength. This young man still has a trump card. At this moment, he suddenly felt slightly uneasy in his heart. Who exactly is this young man? He wasn't as arrogant as the black-robed old man and didn't think that the heavenly demon race was invincible in the entire universe. The heavenly demon race was very strong indeed, but they were definitely not invincible in the entire universe. He was worried that the heavenly demon race had bitten off more than they could chew. Rumble. Right at this moment, an expanse of sword light shattered, and Tianxin was blasted over 10 kilometers away by a single strike from Yi Xian. Tianxin had just stopped when a few hundred rays of sword light suddenly and mysteriously appeared around him. Sever the future. These hundreds of swords appeared in different space-time. Tianxin's eyes narrowed slightly. He was shocked in his heart and didn't dare to be careless. He clenched his fists tightly, squatted down, and roared furiously as a terrifying force swept out from his body. Rumble. In an instant, countless sword lights were shattered and annihilated. After a short moment, the sword light dispersed and Tianxin appeared within Yi Xian's field of vision. At this moment, Tianxin's entire body was covered in dense sword scars, and every single one of them was extremely deep. Even though Tianxin's physical body wasn't completely destroyed, Tianxin's injuries were not light. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly turned to look at the black-robed old man in the distance. The black-robed old man's expression changed drastically when he noticed this. He ignored Dao Ling and turned to look at Yi Xian. He said angrily, "What are you looking at?" Yi Xian was speechless. The black-robed old man looked at Yi Xian as if Yi Xian was the person who killed his mother. Yi Xian was slightly speechless. This old man is a reincarnator realm expert at any rate. Why is he acting like a bird startled by the mere twang of a bow? Right at this moment, numerous shrill cries resounded from the side. Yi Xian turned to look and saw that Zhou Xian and Zhou Xian had killed a few time immortals from the heavenly demon race. The black-robed old man and Tian Sun's expressions instantly became unsightly when they witnessed this scene. "Are we going to be ganged up on now?" Yi Xian suddenly smiled and said, "Don't be nervous. We won't gang up on you." The black-robed old man instantly heaved a sigh of relief when he heard this. This young man still has some martial virtue. Right at this moment Yi Xian suddenly smiled and said, "Of course that's impossible." As he spoke, the three of them charged towards the black-robed old man. On the other hand, Tian Qi, who'd recovered from his injuries, was in charge of keeping Tian Sun busy. The black-robed old man's expression instantly changed violently when he saw Yi Xian and the others charge towards him. He didn't hesitate to turn around and vanish into the starry sky. Flee. He decisively chose to flee. Backbone? Dignity? Nonsense. All of that was nonsense. Survival was the most important thing. He was naturally unafraid of any one of Yi Xian's group of 5 in a one-on-one battle. But he would definitely be unable to resist a group attack. So he decisively chose to flee. Yi Xian and the others were stunned when they saw the black-robed old man flee. The old man actually fled just like that. What the hell? As if they'd thought of something, Yi Xian and the others turned to look at Tian Sun. Tian Sun's expression changed violently and he intended to flee. Meanwhile, Yi Xian and the others had charged over to his side. The group attack. Rumble. Rumble. In next to no time, rumbling resounded throughout the surroundings. Just like that, the battle continued for around 2 hours before the starry sky finally calmed down. At this moment, Tian Sun's body had been shattered and his soul was dim. He wasn't completely dead, but he wasn't far from it. Tian Sun suddenly roared, "Tian Meng." His voice was filled with endless anger and unwillingness. Tian Meng was the old man who had fled just now. Actually, if the old man hadn't fled with their strength, they could have dealt with Yi Xian's group for a while and waited for the Heavenly Monster Tribe's experts to arrive. But he didn't expect that Tian Meng would betray his teammates. He was utterly devoid of conscience. He didn't hate Yi Xian's group because they were enemies. It was normal for them to fight to the death. However, Tian Meng betrayed his teammates. He was truly devoid of conscience. Tian Sun vanished from the scene with boundless unwillingness. Yi Xian looked into the distance and felt it was ridiculous that he didn't leave the black-robed old man alive. He knew that there weren't many reincarnated walkers in the Heavenly Monster Tribe. If he killed one, there would be one less. Unfortunately, the old man had run away. At this moment, Zhou Xian walked to Yi Xian. "Brother Yi, they will come back. And the next time they come, it won't be just 1 or 2 reincarnated walkers." Yi Xian nodded. This time the Heavenly Monster Tribe had suffered a big loss. If the other side still underestimated them, they would be too stupid. Thus, the next time the Heavenly Monster Tribe came, it wouldn't be just 1 reincarnated walker. It might be a super expert who was even stronger than the reincarnated walkers. Yi Xian looked at them and then asked, "Did you get anything from the battle?" Dao Ling nodded. "Big harvest." Yi Xian smiled. "Tell me about it." Dao Ling kept silent for a while and then said, "I think the gap between them and Senior June is too big. I even suspect that they aren't real reincarnated walkers." Zhou Xian nodded. "Indeed. If we had a battle with Senior June, I wouldn't have any chance of winning. No, we would be beaten up. But we could fight evenly with Tian Sun's group. We could even kill them." Then he shook his head. "The gap isn't just big. Senior June." Yi Xian kept silent. He hadn't fought with Senior June, but he could feel his power. The gap between the reincarnated walkers of the Heavenly Monster Tribe and Senior June's group was really big. At this moment, Dao Ling suddenly said, "Brother Yi, they came to attack us. Why didn't they investigate us first?" "Of course, Zhou Xian, Xianxia and I have nothing to investigate. But you're different. You're the heir of the Yang tribe." Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. "Yang tribe? Let alone outsiders, I don't know much about my own family." Dao Ling frowned. "Why?" Yi Xian said seriously, Do you think I relied on my family to get to where I am today? I relied on my own efforts to get to where I am today. Do you understand? Dao Ling's eyes widened. Brother Yi, don't you blush when you talk like that? Yi Xian was speechless. Shi Tian and Junxia shook their heads and smiled. They knew how thick Yi Xian's skin was. Brother Ye's skin was invincible in this world. At this moment, Dao Ling suddenly said, "No matter what, we are now against the heavenly monster tribe. They will definitely take revenge on us." Yi Xian nodded slightly. As he was about to say something, Tianqi suddenly said, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry." Yi Xian's group looked at Tianqi. Tianqi lowered his head slightly. He didn't eat the meat anymore. He knew that his tribe was targeting them because of him. Dao Ling glared at Tianqi. "What do you mean sorry? We're on the same side." "Don't say that." Tianqi hesitated for a while and then handed the meat he had eaten to Dao Ling. Dao Ling's face darkened. "Brother, you ate this." Hearing that, Yi Xian's group burst into laughter. Dao Ling also shook his head and laughed. At this moment, Shi Tian suddenly said, "Brother Yi, how did the heavenly monster tribe know about Tianqi's existence?" Hearing that, Yi Xian's face turned cold. "Of course someone informed them." Shi Tian was silent for a while and said, "The one in the Immortal Mausoleum?" Yi Xian nodded. "It should be him. Seems like he wants to play dirty." Then he shook his head slightly. "Let's not care about him first. Everyone should have gained a lot from the battle just now. Now we can absorb what we have gained." Shi Tian nodded. Everyone started to cultivate. Meanwhile, Yi Xian went to the Immortal Treasure Pavilion. He sat in the room while the masked elder stood respectfully beside him. The masked elder was reporting something to Yi Xian. After a while, Yi Xian said calmly, "Have they started to investigate us?" The masked elder nodded. "Yes. However, with their current strength, they shouldn't be able to investigate young Master Ye's background." Yi Xian was puzzled. "Why?" The masked elder smiled bitterly. "Because even we can't investigate young Master Ye's family. Young Master Yi, your family is very mysterious. I'm afraid only the pavilion master knows the details." Yi Xian smiled. "Let alone you guys, I don't even know myself." The masked elder nodded slightly. "So they might continue to target young Master Ye's group." Yi Xian suddenly said, "If I tell them that the Yang tribe is very strong, will they believe me?" The masked elder shook his head. "No." Yi Xian was puzzled. "Why?" The masked elder hesitated for a while and said, "Young Master Yi, forgive me for being blunt, but you give off the impression that you are the kind of person who likes to brag." Yi Xian was speechless. P.S. There are 2 updates today. I don't dare to talk too much. Explode on the 15th. As for how much? How much do you think is appropriate? The kind that would explode to the point where they would rather eat instant noodles and vote for me. 7017K. Chapter 2277. Yi Xian was speechless when he heard what the masked old man said. Damn it. How can this old man speak like that? What does he mean by I like to brag? The masked old man smiled and said, "Young Master Yi, what do you plan to do next?" Yi Xian smiled. "What else can I plan to do?" The masked old man was about to speak when a figure appeared beside him. The figure bowed and said, "President, the ancient demon king of the Fey Sky clan is here to visit you." Ancient demon king. Yi Xian squinted his eyes. He knew that this was one of the 4 great demon kings of the Fey Sky clan. With the help of the Celestial Treasure Pavilion, he knew the overall strength of the Fey Sky clan and some information about the experts. The masked old man hesitated for a while and looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled. "Let's go. I'll go with you." The masked old man nodded. "Okay." The Celestial Treasure Pavilion had never been involved in any feud with the mortal world. That was because the Celestial Treasure Pavilion was a businessman. However, it didn't mean that the Celestial Treasure Pavilion didn't have a stance. Between Yi Xian and the Fey Sky clan, the Celestial Treasure Pavilion would naturally choose Yi Xian. What a joke. Not to mention the Yang clan behind Yi Xian. Even Yi Xian had a special relationship with the Pavilion Master. It might be fine if the Pavilion Master didn't help Yi Xian. However, if the Pavilion Master helped someone else, Yi Xian would definitely die a horrible death. After a while, the masked old man and Yi Xian arrived at a huge hall. A middle-aged man was waiting for them in the hall. The middle-aged man was tall and wore a simple robe. He had a dignified look on his face. Ancient Demon King. one of the 4 great demon kings of the Fey Sky clan. The ancient demon king looked at Zhou Xian and smiled. You must be young Master Yi. Zhou Xian smiled. Ancient demon king, I've heard a lot about you. Ancient demon king was stunned and smiled. Young Master Yi knows me? Zhou Xian shook his head. Not really. Ancient demon king looked at Zhou Xian and smiled. Then why did you say, I've heard a lot about you? Zhou Xian smiled and said, it's just polite words. Don't take it seriously. Ancient demon king was stunned and then laughed. Young Master Yi is really interesting. As he spoke, he glanced at the masked old man and smiled. Looks like the relationship between young Master Yi and the Immortal Treasure Pavilion isn't ordinary. Zhou Xian smiled. I'm the same as you, sir. I'm also a guest of Celestial Treasure Pavilion. Ancient demon king picked up the teacup in front of him and took a sip. Then he smiled and said, Young Master Yi, I wanted to find you but I didn't expect to meet you here. Then I'll get straight to the point. The young man beside young Master Yi Xianxia is from my Devil Sky tribe. I want to take him away. Zhou Xian sat at the side and drank the tea in one gulp. Then he smiled and said, Xianxia is my brother. Ancient demon king looked at Zhou Xian and smiled. Nothing to talk about. Zhou Xian smiled. Nothing to talk about. Ancient demon king nodded and stood up to leave. When he reached the door, he suddenly smiled and said, Young Master Yi, there are many decisions in a person's life, and each decision will determine his future. Some decisions can make you successful and some will make you doomed. Then he turned to look at Zhou Xian and smiled. Young Master Yi, take care. Then he turned and disappeared. In the palace, Zhou Xian looked at the masked old man and asked, Is he threatening me? The masked old man nodded. Obviously. Zhou Xian shook his head and smiled. Kill him. As soon as he finished speaking, he dashed out. Outside the palace there was a sword chime. In the palace the masked old man was stunned. Is he really going to kill him? Outside Celestial Treasure Pavilion, Zhou Xian forced Ancient Demon King to stop with his sword. Ancient Demon King looked at Zhou Xian calmly. Zhou Xian smiled and said, I don't like to threaten people. Then he disappeared and slashed at Ancient Demon King with his sword. Ancient Demon King smiled. Since you want to die so much, I will fulfill your wish. As soon as he finished speaking, he disappeared and punched at Zhou Xian. As soon as the punch was thrown out, time and space were torn apart. A dreadful force swept towards Zhou Xian. Zhou Xian sneered. He suddenly drew his sword and slashed. The sword light tore everything. Rumble. As the sword aura exploded, Zhou Xian retreated. In the process of retreating, hundreds of sword auras suddenly engulfed the ancient demon king. Rumble. At this moment, a fist mark rushed out from the sword light and headed towards Zhou Xian. From afar, Zhou Xian moved his mind and the sword in his hand flew out. Boom. The fist mark was shattered by Zhou Xian's sword. In the starry sky, Zhou Xian and Ancient Demon King faced each other. Ancient Demon King looked at Zhou Xian and smiled. Extraordinary indeed. Zhou Xian smiled. Ancient Demon King, you are a great demon sky clan. Can't you accept the heaven's abandonment? Ancient Demon King fell silent for a while and said, If he still has the demon god's bloodline, I will protect him even if I have to risk my life. It's a pity that he no longer has the demon god's bloodline. If he is an ordinary person, I can turn a blind eye to it. It's a pity that he is not ordinary. Even without the help of his family, he could reach such a level. Then he shook his head. I'm afraid he will hold a grudge and take revenge on our demon sky clan in the future. Zhou Xian fell silent. He knew that after Tianqi's demon god's bloodline was taken away, he was worthless to the demon sky clan. Not only was he worthless, but he was also a threat. Zhou Xian shook his head. If that's the case, there's no need to say more. Let's fight. Ancient Demon King nodded. For my family, you for my brother. There's no need to say more. Let's fight. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly dashed forward and threw a punch at Zhou Xian. The power of the punch was terrifying. The moment the punch was thrown, countless starlights in the starry sky were extinguished. Then the surrounding starry sky started to collapse inch by inch. At the same time, a terrifying fist intent directly shrouded Zhou Xian in the distance. Under the shroud of this fist intent, Zhou Xian immediately felt an oppressive feeling as if a mountain was pressing down on him. Facing the ancient demon king, Zhou Xian did not dare to be careless. He did not know what cultivation realm the ancient demon king was in. However, based on the current situation, The ancient demon king's strength was much stronger than the heaven-seeking demonic beast. Xian closed his eyes slowly. When the fist arrived in front of him, he suddenly opened his eyes and slashed with his sword. Slash into nothingness. When he slashed with his sword, pissed. In front of Xian, the terrifying fist power suddenly disappeared as though it had never appeared. The ancient demon king who was in front of Xian had a drastic change in his expression. He raised his arms to block the attack. Rumble. A sword radiance suddenly exploded. Immediately after, the ancient demon king retreated hundreds of thousands of feet. As soon as he stopped, his arms were crushed. Not only that, but the spacetime in front of him and Xian was forcefully erased. The ancient demon king looked at Xian, who was standing with a sword in the distance. He could not believe his eyes. What sword technique is that? Xian smiled. I created it myself. Slash into nothingness. The ancient demon king stared at Xian. You did not create it yourself. Xian did not understand. Why not? The ancient demon king stared at Xian and did not speak. Xian laughed. I did not create it. My father created it. Of course, what's the difference between what he created and what I created? What my father created is mine. What's mine is still mine. But the green shirt man was speechless. The ancient demon king looked at Xian. You are such a filial son. Xian smiled. Don't talk nonsense. Come on, ancient demon king. Let's fight again. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly disappeared on the spot. The sword slashed at the ancient demon king. In the distance, the ancient demon king's eyes flashed with coldness. The next moment, his body shook violently. Then a demon beast appeared. His real body. The ancient demon king's real body was like a giant ape. He had 2 arms and 2 legs. He was 100 zhang tall. His eyes were like lanterns. His eyes were filled with evil and ferocious light. It was as if he wanted to devour the universe. It was terrifying. His real body. Apparently, he no longer had the nerve to be careless or underestimate Xian's sword attack. He showed his true form right away. The ancient demon king shouted angrily and punched. Boom. The moment he punched out, the entire universe shook violently as if there was a huge earthquake. Facing this terrifying punch, Xian did not dare to be careless. He slashed with his sword. Slash into nothingness. The man and the demon beast chose to fight head-on. Boom. Suddenly, a wave of sword light erupted in the starry sky like a volcanic eruption. Then Xian and the ancient demon king retreated at the same time. Xian retreated hundreds of thousands of feet. As soon as he stopped, he spat out a mouthful of blood essence. The immemorial divine sword in his hand had completely cracked. Slash into nothingness was powerful. However, his sword could not withstand it. Xian looked at the immemorial celestial sword in his hand and sighed. Compared to the Cyan profound sword, there was still a big difference. In the distance, the ancient demon king was also badly injured. His right arm was cut off. Not only that, his whole body was cracked. Blood was flowing out. Facing Xian's terrifying sword, even his strong body could not withstand it. The ancient demon king looked at Xian in the distance. He was shocked. The power of Xian's sword was beyond his expectation. He did not expect that he could not withstand Xian's sword even after returning to his original body. One should know that his physical body had reached the reincarnation walker realm. A physical body at this level was extremely terrifying. It was almost invincible among those at the same level. But Xian, who was not even a time immortal, had broken his physical body with one sword technique. This man was so terrifying. The ancient demon king stared at Xian. At this moment he felt uneasy. Xian's monstrous talent was beyond his expectation. An ordinary force could not nurture such a monstrous talent. Such a monstrous talent might have a powerful force behind him. In the distance, Xian wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. He looked at the ancient demon king and was about to attack again. At this moment, a message entered his mind. The next moment, Xian was furious. This idiot. 7017K. Chapter 2278. Xian was furious. Why? He had just received news that Tianqi had gone to the Monster Sky clan alone. Obviously, Tianqi did not want to implicate them. Xian did not care about the ancient demon king. He turned and disappeared into the horizon. Not far away, the ancient demon king frowned. In the next moment he seemed to have received some news and disappeared on the spot. In the starry sky, Xian found Dao Ling, Shirtian and Junxia. Dao Ling said, "We did not expect him to go to the Monster Sky clan alone." After a moment of silence, Xian said, "Let's go to the Monster Sky clan." After saying that, the brothers disappeared into the starry sky. On the way, Dao Ling's face was ugly. "Brother Yi, heaven has abandoned him." Xian looked into the starry sky and said softly, "I hope we can make it in time." After saying that, the brothers suddenly sped up. Before long they arrived at the Monster Sky Sacred Territory. The Monster Sky Sacred Territory was the lair of the Monster Sky clan. As soon as they entered the Monster Sky Sacred Territory, Xian and the others were locked on by several terrifying divine senses. The aura of a reincarnation walker. Xian looked into the starry sky coldly. In the next moment he opened his palm and the sword in his hand suddenly flew out. The sword radiance tore the sky apart and slashed into the starry sky in the distance. Boom! Suddenly, a sword radiance exploded in the distant starry sky. Then a fist mark streaked across the starry sky and headed straight for Xian and the others. A vicious glint flashed in Xian's eyes. He gently pushed with his thumb. Buzz! A sword suddenly flew out from the scabbard. Rumble! The fist mark was shattered by the sword. At this moment, a middle-aged man appeared in front of Xian and the others. The middle-aged man stared at Xian coldly. "You are Xian." Xian's expression was calm. "Where is Tianqi?" A wisp of ridicule appeared on the corners of the middle-aged man's mouth. "You can't even protect yourself, yet you still care about that bastard?" Xian glared at the middle-aged man. "You keep saying that Tianqi is a bastard. Damn it. What about the Fey celestial race? Bastard? Or a son of a bitch?" The middle-aged man flew into a rage. "How dare you insult the Fey Sky clan? You..." At this moment Xian suddenly disappeared. Boom! A wave of sword light suddenly slashed at the middle-aged man. Rumble! As the sword light shattered, the middle-aged man instantly retreated hundreds of thousands of feet. As soon as he stopped, his body split open and blood sprayed everywhere. Meanwhile, another ray of sword light slashed over. The middle-aged man's expression changed drastically. He crossed his arms in front of his chest and a terrifying force swept out from his body. Rumble! The sword light shattered and the middle-aged man was killed. Because this sword slashed through the void. Impudent! At this moment, an angry roar suddenly rang out from the depths of the starry sky. Then a terrifying aura swept over and enveloped Xian and the others. Xian's expression was calm. It was so calm that it was terrifying. An old man appeared in front of Xian and the others. The old man was one of the 4 great monster kings of the Fey Sky clan, the Wood Monster King. The Wood Monster King glared at Xian. Die! As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly threw a punch. A terrifying golden fist radiance swept out like a volcanic eruption and headed straight for Xian. In the distance, Xian's expression was calm. When the fist radiance arrived in front of him, he suddenly slashed out with his sword. In an instant, the golden fist radiance suddenly disappeared without a trace, slashing through the void. Seeing this, the Wood Monster King's eyes widened. What kind of sword is that?" Before the Wood Monster King could finish speaking, Xian suddenly slashed out with his sword. The Wood Monster King's expression changed drastically. Facing Xian's terrifying sword, he did not dare to take it head-on. His body trembled and he retreated thousands of feet away. The position where he was originally standing was directly erased by Xian's sword. Even the River of Time could not block this slashing through the void. The Wood Monster King looked at Xian with a hint of fear in his eyes. Xian's face was expressionless. "Where is Tianqi?" The Wood Monster King stared at Xian. "Who the hell are you?" Xian suddenly said fiercely, "I asked you to answer, not ask." As soon as he finished speaking, he rushed forward and slashed out with his sword. The Wood Monster King was shocked. Because Xian's speed was too fast, he could not dodge at all. Therefore he could only take it head-on. He raised his hands and returned to his original form. A huge demonic beast appeared in the field. This huge demonic beast smashed its fist down to meet Xian's sword. Rumble! An expanse of swords exploded apart, and the enormous demon beast retreated repeatedly. As he retreated, numerous sword howls suddenly resounded, and it didn't take long for a few hundred rays of light to drown the Demon King beneath them. Boom, boom, boom. Sword rays exploded around the Wood Monster King. In a few breaths, the Wood Monster King retreated hundreds of thousands of feet away. At this moment, an angry roar suddenly resounded from the sword rays. Then a huge fist suddenly tore the sword rays apart and shook the heavens and earth. When the Wood Monster King shattered the sword rays, Dao Ling and the others discovered that there were hundreds of blood-red sword marks around the Wood Monster King's body. The Wood Monster King stared angrily at Zhou Xian in the distance. His huge eyes were like lanterns. His eyes were filled with anger and murderous intent. Zhou Xian suddenly rushed forward and slashed out with his sword. Slash into nothingness. The Wood Demon King's pupils constricted when it saw Zhou Xian's terrifying sword strike, and it swiftly blocked with its arms. Rumble. The sword rays were shattered, and so was the Wood Monster King's body. After destroying the Wood Monster King's body, Zhou Xian was about to follow up and destroy his soul. At this moment, a shadow suddenly rushed in front of him. Then a fist with a terrifying force went straight for his head. Zhou Xian turned around and slashed down with his sword. Rumble. Zhou Xian was sent flying thousands of feet away by the fist. After stopping, Zhou Xian looked into the distance. The person who attacked was the ancient Demon King who had just returned. The ancient Demon King looked at Zhou Xian calmly, but he was shocked. Zhou Xian's sword skill was too terrifying. Even the ancient Demon King did not dare to take it head-on. The ancient Demon King suppressed his shock and said in a deep voice, "Zhou Xian, this is the Demon Sky Clan." His voice was filled with undisguised murderous intent and anger. Zhou Xian looked at the ancient Demon King and said, "Ask Xianxia to come out." The ancient Demon King stared at Zhou Xian and said, "What if I say no?" Zhou Xian looked calm. The next moment he suddenly disappeared. The ancient Demon King's pupils shrank because Zhou Xian's sword slashed into nothingness again. He did not dare to take it head-on. He immediately moved back and distanced himself from Zhou Xian. As soon as he moved back, the starry sky in front of him was erased by Zhou Xian's sword. The ancient Demon King was fearful. Zhou Xian's sword skill was too terrifying. Zhou Xian closed his eyes slowly. He was trying to sense Xianxia. Soon his face turned gloomy because he realized he could not sense Xianxia at all. Did something happen? Zhou Xian could not help but frown at the thought. At this moment the ancient Demon King suddenly said, "Zhou Xian." Zhou Xian suddenly looked at the ancient Demon King and said, "Nonsense. What nonsense are you talking to me about? I am here to fight, not to chat with you." As soon as he finished speaking, he disappeared on the spot. One sword slashed into nothingness. Seeing this, the ancient Demon King's pupils shrank. He quickly retreated tens of thousands of feet away and shouted angrily, "Is that all you know?" Zhou Xian looked at the ancient Demon King and said, "It's none of your business." The ancient Demon King stared at Zhou Xian with an extremely unsightly expression. He realized that this was Zhou Xian's most terrifying move. He was confident that he could defeat Zhou Xian without using this sword skill. However, the problem was that once Zhou Xian used this move, he would not dare to go head-on against Zhou Xian even if he returned to his original form. This move was too terrifying. In the distance, Zhou Xian opened his palm, and the primordial divine sword appeared in his hand. In the next moment, a terrifying force surged out from his body. He did not want to drag this on any longer. The longer he dragged this on, the more dangerous Xianxia would be. Dao Ling and the others clenched their fists and were prepared to attack. Although they were not confident in going head-on against the entire Monster Sky race, they did not retreat. In the distance, the ancient Demon King suddenly mocked, "What? Do you want to gang up on me in my Monster Sky race?" As soon as he finished speaking, he clapped his hands. In the next moment, a few dozen powerful auras suddenly appeared. After that, a few dozen powerful demon beasts appeared around Zhou Xian and the others. The weakest amongst them was a time immortal, and there were even 7 reincarnated travelers amongst them. Zhou Xian glanced at the experts of the Monster Sky race and heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, there aren't many reincarnated travelers amongst the Monster Sky race. Right at this moment, 2 mysterious divine senses suddenly locked onto him. He quickly turned his head to look and saw 2 old men standing not too far away. Both of them wore black robes and their hands were hidden in their wide sleeves. They were reincarnated travelers as well. Zhou Xian's face instantly fell when he saw this. Right at this moment, An unknown and mysterious divine sense suddenly enveloped him. Yi Xian was shocked and he hurriedly glanced at the surroundings. However, he didn't see the divine sense. Above the reincarnated traveler realm? Yi Xian's face fell. If it was a reincarnated traveler, then he would be able to fight and even kill that reincarnated traveler. But if it was an expert above the reincarnated traveler realm? Suddenly, all of them seemed to have noticed something and they turned around to look. A young man was walking over slowly from not too far away. It was Xianxia. Xianxia was walking over with 2 goats on his shoulders. Yi Xian and the others were stunned when they saw Xianxia. Xianxia walked over slowly to Yi Xian, and then he placed the 2 goats in front of Yi Xian. Big brother. Roast. Yi Xian gazed at Xianxia. You went to look for the goats just now? Xianxia nodded. Yes. Yi Xian turned around to gaze at Dao Ling. Dao Ling hesitated for a moment before he said, he left early in the morning. So, I thought he came to the monster sky race on his own because he was afraid of dragging us down. As he spoke, he smiled sheepishly and said, I didn't expect it to be a misunderstanding. Yi Xian thought for a moment, then he turned to look at the ancient demon king and said with a smile, Ancient demon king, it's a misunderstanding, a huge misunderstanding. We didn't come here today to fight, we came here to deliver the goats. P.S. Everyone is guessing how many chapters will be released tomorrow. I think everyone's guesses are a little off the mark. I suddenly feel a little nervous. 7017K. Chapter 2279. Here to deliver the sheep. Hearing this, the ancient demon king felt humiliated. He flew into a rage and said fiercely, Yi Xian, do you think I am? Before the ancient demon king could finish his sentence, Yi Xian, Dao Ling and the others suddenly disappeared. They did not run away. Instead, they charged at the ancient demon king. Obviously, they wanted to kill the ancient demon king together. Seeing Yi Xian and the others attacking at the same time, the ancient demon king was dumbfounded. What are they trying to do? Sneak attack? That's immoral. Seeing them charging at him, the ancient demon king quickly said, kill them. At this moment, Yi Xian and the others were already in front of him. Yi Xian slashed with his sword. Slash into nothingness. Dao Ling and the others also attacked at the same time. Rumble. With a loud explosion, the ancient demon king was sent flying tens of thousands of zhang away. Then his body shattered. Right at this moment, a ray of sword light suddenly slashed towards his soul. Seeing this, the ancient demon king's pupils shrank to the size of a needle. He only had one thought in his mind. It's over. At this critical moment, a mysterious power suddenly enveloped the ancient demon king. Rumble. Yi Xian's sword was blocked by the mysterious power. Yi Xian stopped and turned to look. Not far away there was an elder in a gray robe. Seeing this person, the experts of the Devil Sky tribe hurriedly saluted. Greetings, Grand Demon King. Grand Demon King. The leader of the 4 demon kings. Heavenly Demon King. Yi Xian looked at the Sky Demon King, and a hint of seriousness flashed in his eyes. The old man in front of him had an aura that far surpassed that of the ancient demon king. It was highly possible that he was an expert above the reincarnation walker realm. The heavenly demon king sized up Yi Xian and then turned to look at Xianxia. When he saw Xianxia, a complicated look flashed in his eyes. The person in front of him was the most dazzling genius of the heavenly demon tribe. And today he had become the target that heavenly monster tribe had to eliminate. In the field, some experts of heavenly monster tribe were assessing Xianxia. Some experienced experts of heavenly monster tribe knew Xianxia. When he was born that year, he had shaken the entire tribe. Unfortunately, his mother was of humble birth. Xianxia's expression was calm, but his right hand was tightly clenched. This was his former home. However, he didn't feel anything about this place at all. There was only a sense of unfamiliarity and cold hostility. At this moment, the heavenly demon king suddenly looked at Yi Xian and said solemnly, You're so young, yet you have such terrifying strength. I presume you're not an ordinary person. Come, tell me about the person behind you. Yi Xian shook his head. I don't have anyone backing me up. I relied on myself to get where I am now. Celestial Demon King looked at Yi Xian. Do I look like a fool to you? Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, I have a younger sister. She's very invincible and even Daoist is afraid of her. Daoist was speechless. Celestial Demon King looked at Yi Xian. Invincible. Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Celestial Demon King's expression was calm. How invincible? Xian hesitated for a moment. Then he said, invincible is a humble description. Celestial Demon King stared at Xian. Do I look like a fool to you? Clearly he didn't believe it. Xian glanced at Celestial Demon King and smiled. I think you do. Celestial Demon King narrowed his eyes. I'll give you one last chance. Tell me about the person and faction behind you. Clearly he was still afraid of the person behind Xian and the faction they represented. Xian said solemnly, my younger sister is really invincible. Celestial Demon King looked at Xian. Then tell her to come. I want to see her. Xian hesitated for a moment before saying, this? Celestial Demon King sneered. Why? Isn't she invincible? Why is she afraid of coming to my Fey Sky race? Xian shook his head. I'll tell you the truth again. Don't be angry. Your Fey Sky race is too weak. She might not be interested. Hearing this, the Fey Sky race powerhouses were stunned at first. Then they laughed loudly. Celestial Demon King could not help but laugh loudly too. Xian was silent. Dao Ling said solemnly, Brother Yi, why do you sound like you're bragging when you're telling the truth? Not to mention them, even I don't believe you. Xian was speechless. At this moment, Celestial Demon King suddenly laughed. Young man, are you trying to make this old man laugh himself to death? Invincible? How many people in this world dare to say they are invincible? He said she is invincible. Aren't you afraid that her fate is not strong enough and she will be arranged by Daoist? In a small room in the Milky Way, a voice suddenly sounded. Arrange your mother. Xian glanced at Celestial Demon King. Old man, to be honest, I think Daoist might be arranging things for you. Celestial Demon King sneered. I have transcended time. What can Daoist do to me? Xian said sternly, how dare you look down on Daoist? You are too arrogant. Celestial Demon King mocked. Only an ant like you would fear the so-called Daoist. Let me tell you, my fate is up to me, not the heavens. A true expert can decide his own fate. Daoist can only bully ants like you. In the face of a top expert, he doesn't even dare to fart. Xian glanced at Celestial Demon King and gave him a thumbs up. Impressive. Celestial Demon King wanted to say something, but at this moment, dark clouds suddenly covered the sky above the Fey Sky race. Then a bolt of lightning suddenly appeared in the dark clouds. Seeing this scene, all the heavenly demon race experts were stunned. At this moment, Celestial Demon King's expression suddenly changed. Reincarnation Divine Lightning Tribulation. The old man isn't breaking through. Why did the Reincarnation Divine Lightning Tribulation appear? What the hell? Xian glanced at the divine lightning that was about to condense in the sky. He knew it must be Daoist's doing. Celestial Demon King's words clearly angered Daoist. At this moment, Celestial Demon King seemed to recall something and his pupils shrank. Daoist. It's Daoist. Daoist? All the Fey Sky race experts were stunned. Daoist was targeting Celestial Demon King? At this moment, Celestial Demon King suddenly said fiercely, Daoist, the old man has no grudge against you. Why are you doing this? There was no response, but the tribulation lightning was getting stronger. Celestial Demon King's eyes flashed with fear. At this moment he was panicking. Damn it. Actually, he was still a little fearful of the Great Way Brush. The reason why he said that just now was because he wanted to act tough. But he didn't expect that Daoist would directly arrange for him to attack. This is too much. At the side, Xian suddenly said, Celestial Demon King, are you afraid? Celestial Demon King glared at Xian angrily. It's none of your business. Xian said with a smile, Celestial Demon King, you just said that Daoist doesn't even dare to fart in front of a true expert. Why, are you afraid now? Celestial Demon King stared at Xian as if he wanted to skin Xian alive. At this moment, the tribulation lightning suddenly fell from the sky. Boom. In an instant, a terrifying force swept down. Below, Celestial Demon King's pupils constricted. He suddenly roared, spread his arms and returned to his original form. Celestial Demon King was like a giant bear. His arms were 10,000 feet long. Once he returned to his original form, the surrounding mountains seemed extremely small. A trace of hostility flashed in the heavenly Demon King's eyes. He suddenly roared angrily and punched. Rumble. His punch shook heaven and earth as if it wanted to crush the sky. It was extremely frightening. Rumble. With a loud explosion, the tribulation lightning directly shattered Celestial Demon King's body. Gone. That mountain-like body was like a piece of tofu in front of the tribulation lightning. It shattered with one touch. Boom. Celestial Demon King's body shattered, leaving only his soul. That soul was extremely weak and almost transparent. All the Fey Sky race experts were dumbfounded. Xian was also a little shocked. Damn it, this Daoist is really amazing. In the air, Celestial Demon King was a little confused. Gone. I'm gone just like that? What the hell? At this moment Xian suddenly said, Celestial Demon King, rest in peace. Celestial Demon King looked at Xian with a sharp gaze. You deliberately set a trap for me to offend Daoist. Xian nodded. Yes. But you said it yourself. Daoist only bullies the weak and fears the strong. In front of a true expert he doesn't even dare to fart. You said that, right? Celestial Demon King stared at Xian. Xian smiled and said, I'll be struck by lightning if I act cool. Celestial Demon King was so angry that he disappeared on the spot. In the battlefield, all the Celestial Demon race experts were dumbfounded. Gone. The powerful Celestial Demon King was gone just like that. At this moment Xian suddenly cupped his fists at the tribulation lightning. He smiled and said, Brother Bai, thank you. Daoist. All the Celestial Demon race experts looked at Xian in shock. Was this guy on Daoist's side? At this moment Xian suddenly frowned. What? You want to exterminate the entire Celestial Demon race? This isn't too good, right? All the Celestial Demon race experts. At this moment Xian suddenly said seriously, Brother Bai, this isn't right. Although Celestial Demon King was disrespectful to you, his wife and children shouldn't be implicated. I think it's enough for you to kill him. You want to exterminate his entire race? You're going a little too far. Daoist. All the Celestial Demon race experts were really panicking now. They had just witnessed how terrifying Daoist was. If Daoist really wanted to exterminate the entire Celestial Demon race, some of the monstrous Sky Tribe experts were already starting to feel fear. At this time Xian said, Brother Bai, this clan must not be destroyed, they are inhumane. When he spoke up to this point he paused for a moment and said, How about this? Ask the Demon Sky clan to compensate you with thousands of universe veins, and we'll let bygones be bygones. What do you think? Daoist. Xian suddenly turned to look at the Fey Sky clan experts below. My brother Bai has agreed. Give me 1,000 or 10,000 universe veins and I'll let this matter go. In a small room in the Milky Way galaxy, a voice suddenly bellowed, Damn it, how dare you be so fancy. Faster, see me. At this moment, a sword suddenly appeared in the room. The voice stopped abruptly. After a while the voice said calmly, Young Master Ye's wisdom is unparalleled. I admire you very much. P.S. If I explode today I won't let you leave the toilet. He squatted until his legs were numb. 7017K. Chapter 2280. The expressions of the experts from the Moon Devil Sky clan turned unsightly when they saw that Xian wanted the time vein. He wants the time vein. Is Daoist greedy for money? That shouldn't be the case. He's just a brush. Why would he need the time vein? Could it be that Xian wanted to take this opportunity to extort money? The experts from the Moon Devil Sky clan turned unsightly when they thought of that. Damn it. This young man is clearly trying to extort us. However, they didn't dare to voice their anger. After all, the tribulation lightning was still there. Moreover, they weren't sure about the relationship between Daoist and Xian. Do they know each other? Meanwhile, Xian suddenly frowned. What? Do all of you want to be annihilated? The experts from the Moon Devil Sky clan gazed coldly at Xian and remained silent. Xian turned around and looked at the tribulation lightning. Brother Brush? The tribulation lightning suddenly vanished. Xian's face fell. Damn it. Daoist isn't giving me any face at all. How embarrassing. Damn it. Xian's expression was extremely unsightly. The experts from the Moon Devil Sky clan gazed at Xian with hostile gazes when they saw the tribulation lightning vanish. Obviously, Daoist didn't intend to ask for the time vein. It was this young man who wanted to extort the Moon Devil Sky clan. He's simply insane. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly shot a glance at Dao Ling and the others, and they vanished into the starry sky. The experts of the Monster Sky clan wanted to pursue Yi Xian, but they seemed to be afraid of something in the next moment, and they didn't dare to pursue him. After all, Yi Xian wasn't weak. If they chased after him, they might not be able to return alive even if they chased after him. Meanwhile, a terrifying aura suddenly swept out from the surroundings. They turned around and saw a beautiful woman walking over slowly from afar. The beautiful woman was dressed in a long black dress. She had a voluptuous figure and an ice-cold expression. The expressions of all the experts of the Demon Sky clan changed drastically when they saw her, and then they hurriedly bowed. Patriarch. Clan leader. This woman was the current clan leader of the monstrous Sky clan, Yao Lian. Back then, the incident of Tianqi's abandonment was caused by this woman. Evil Lotus looked at the deep space in the distance. Her face was expressionless, but her eyes were terrifyingly cold. After a while, Evil Lotus suddenly said, "Send my order. Tell the two gods and Nether Monster to return immediately." With that, she turned around and left. 1 hour later, Evil Lotus came to a celestial treasure pavilion alone. This was the celestial treasure pavilion of the Demon Heaven celestial realm. The Demon Heaven clan had always had a good relationship with this celestial treasure pavilion. As soon as Evil Lotus entered the palace, a lady came out to welcome him. That lady was the president of the celestial treasure pavilion's branch, Tsangyu. Tsangyu smiled. "What brings you here?" Evil Lotus walked to Tsangyu and went straight to the point. "I want all the information about that young man." The smile on Tsangyu's face instantly disappeared. Evil Lotus frowned. "Trouble?" Yao Yu sighed in a low voice. "Yes." Evil Lotus spoke in a low voice. "We're sisters. Aren't you going to help me with this?" Tsangyu glanced at Evil Lotus. "If I didn't want to help you, I would have left this place a long time ago." As she spoke, she glanced at the maidservants by the side, and they immediately left. Tsangyu spoke in a low voice. "That young man is called Yi Xian, and he's an extraordinary distinguished guest of the Celestial Treasure Pavilion. Moreover, according to my knowledge, he has a very good relationship with the Pavilion Master. As for the exact relationship between them, I don't know. All I know is that the Pavilion Master treats him differently than others." When she spoke up to this point, she glanced at Evil Lotus and spoke in a low voice. "I suggest that you don't go against him." Evil Lotus's expression was icy cold. "I don't want to go against him. He wants to go against the Demon Heaven clan." Tsangyu sighed in a low voice and didn't speak. Evil Lotus continued, "Do me one last favor. I want all the information about this young man and the power behind him." Tsangyu immediately shook her head. Evil Lotus frowned slightly. "You don't want to help me?" Tsangyu spoke in a low voice. "It's not that I don't want to help you, but I have no right to investigate the power behind him. With my current rank, I don't have the right to investigate him." Evil Lotus frowned slightly. "So mysterious?" Tsangyu nodded. "More than mysterious." As she spoke, she looked at Evil Lotus and spoke seriously. "Evil Lotus, I sincerely suggest that you don't go against him. This young man is mysterious and terrifying. If you insist on going against him, I'm afraid you'll be in great trouble." Evil Lotus's expression became even colder. "Is that so? I'd like to see who exactly he is." After that, she turned around and left. Tsangyu wanted to persuade her, but Evil Lotus didn't give her the chance. She disappeared in the horizon. In the palace, Tsangyu was silent. At this moment, an old man appeared beside Tsangyu. He spoke in a low voice. "President." Tsangyu closed her eyes slowly and said softly, "I'm afraid the Demon Heaven clan is finished." The old man was shocked. "President, why do you say that?" Tsangyu looked up into the sky and spoke softly. "I have the right to investigate the Demon Heaven clan, but I don't have the right to investigate the power behind that young man." The old man instantly came to an understanding when he heard this. Meanwhile, Tsangyu spoke abruptly, "Go contact that young man Yi Xian in secret and express our goodwill." The old man hesitated for a moment and said, "Then the Demon Heaven clan." Tsangyu's expression was calm. "There are no eternal friends, only eternal interests. I'll be friends with whoever is stronger." After that, she turned around and left. The old man was speechless. On the other side, Yi Xian and the others heaved sighs of relief when they saw that the Demon Heaven clan hadn't pursued them after they'd fled. They'd almost been ganged up on just now. Meanwhile, Xianxia spoke abruptly, "Big brother." Yi Xian looked at Xianxia. "What's wrong?" Xianxia turned to look in the direction of the Demon Heaven clan with a slightly dazed gaze. "It's a very familiar smell. Very familiar." Yi Xian and the others exchanged glances. It was very likely that the familiar smell that Xianxia spoke of was his mother. "Mother." Yi Xian fell silent. Xianxia lowered his head slightly and didn't say anything else. Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. "Xianxia, our current strength isn't enough to go against the entire Demon Heaven clan." Xianxia suddenly looked at Yi Xian. "I don't want to implicate all of you, but I only know all of you." Yi Xian smiled and said, "Don't worry. Your problem is our problem." Dao Ling nodded as well. "Xianxia, don't worry. With Brother Yi around, any problem can be solved." Xianxia shook his head. I don't want to implicate all of you." As he spoke, he clenched his fists slowly, and his eyes were filled with determination. "I want to become stronger. Become stronger." Yi Xian was about to speak when he suddenly turned around. Space had suddenly split open in the depths of the starry sky, and then a beautiful woman in a black dress walked out from within it. She was the patriarch of the Demon Heaven clan, Zhou Xian. Beside Evil Lotus there were two black-robed elders. The auras of these two black-robed elders were unfathomable, and there were 9 people standing behind these two elders. All 9 of them were reincarnated travelers. Yi Xian frowned when he witnessed this scene. The experts of the Demon Heaven clan had chased after us in the end. Zhou Xian gazed at Yi Xian and said, "What's your relationship with Daoist?" Yi Xian smiled. "We're good brothers." Zhou Xian's expression was icy cold. "Don't be glib in front of me, all right?" Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, "You're that woman who seized the bloodline of the heaven-abandoned devil god all those years ago." Zhou Xian's expression was calm. "Yes." Yi Xian's eyes narrowed slightly. "How vicious." Zhou Xian stared fixedly at Yi Xian. "This has nothing to do with you, yet you just had to interfere. Since it's like that, then don't blame me for being merciless." As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly vanished on the spot. His space had suddenly split open in front of Yi Xian, and then a mysterious figure had charged out from within it. Yi Xian's eyes narrowed slightly, and then he swiftly drew his sword and slashed. Rumble. An expanse of sword light shattered, and then Yi Xian was instantly blasted over 100 kilometers away. After Yi Xian stopped moving, he glanced at his right hand. At this moment, the sword in his hand had shattered completely. Moreover, his entire right arm had cracked open, and the ghastly white bones within it were clearly visible. It was an extremely shocking sight. Yi Xian raised his head and looked at Zhou Xian in the distance. There was a trace of seriousness in his eyes. This woman's strength was much more terrifying than the heavenly demon king's. Black Lotus stared coldly at Yi Xian. She slowly clenched her right hand, and at the same time, a terrifying force suddenly gathered from all directions. In an instant, the entire Milky Way was boiling. Yi Xian's eyes narrowed slightly, and his right hand gripped tightly onto the sword in his hand. A powerful force gushed out of his body and finally surged into the sword in his right hand. At this moment, Black Lotus suddenly vanished on the spot. Rumble. A demonic beast's roar suddenly resounded through the starry sky. Rumble. In an instant, Dao Ling and the others' expressions changed drastically. That roar had shaken their eardrums and damaged their internal organs. Dao Ling and the others ignored their own injuries and quickly looked at Yi Xian in the distance. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly opened his eyes and slashed out with his sword. Slash through nothingness. With one slash, all things returned to nothingness. Rumble. The starry sky in front of Yi Xian was directly erased. Then a terrifying force suddenly erupted. Rumble. Along with his sword, Yi Xian instantly retreated tens of thousands of meters away. As soon as he stopped, a huge hand suddenly descended from above Yi Xian's head. Rumble. In an instant, the starry sky above Yi Xian's head started burning. Below, Yi Xian lightly pushed with his thumb. A sword howl soared into the sky, and it slashed at the huge hand. Rumble. The huge hand was suddenly erased. At the sight of this, Evil Lotus instantly narrowed her eyes. What sword technique is that? In the distance, Yi Xian wiped the blood from the corners of his mouth and then he grinned. Won't you know after I stab you? Evil Lotus suddenly flew into a rage. Shameless. Shameless. I'm going to castrate you. Xian was stunned. What the fuck did I say? How am I shameless and shameless? 7017K. Chapter 2281. Needless to say, Xian was a bit confused. What was wrong with what he said? Was there a problem? Xian thought about it carefully. Was there a problem? At this moment, Evil Lotus suddenly rushed toward Xian like a madman. Behind her, a huge demonic beast Dharma Laksana appeared. Although it had not completely returned to its original form, it was already extremely terrifying. The powerful demonic beast power swept across the sky. The entire starry sky was boiling like water. It was extremely terrifying. As soon as Evil Lotus rushed forward, Xian felt an extremely terrifying power. He did not dare to be careless. He rushed forward and slashed with his sword. One slash cut through nothingness. Rumble. A sword light exploded. Xian and Evil Lotus retreated at the same time. After Evil Lotus stopped, she looked at her right hand. At this moment, her right hand had become illusory. Evil Lotus was a bit shocked. If she had not retreated quickly, her hand would have been completely wiped out. What a terrifying sword skill. Evil Lotus looked at Xian in the distance. At this moment, there was no contempt in her eyes. The sword skill of this young man in front of her was not just ordinarily terrifying. It was definitely not created by an ordinary person. Thinking of this, Evil Lotus's face fell. However, she had no way out now. It was impossible to back down now. Thinking of this, Evil Lotus looked at Xian in the distance. Her eyes flashed with killing intent. The next moment, her body shook violently. Then she turned into a huge black phoenix and soared into the sky. Rumble. All of a sudden, a dark flame spread out from the depths of the starry sky. At this moment, the entire starry sky was burning. At the same time, the temperature within a radius of hundreds of thousands of zhang suddenly skyrocketed. A galaxy was incinerated directly. In the starry sky, Evil Lotus looked down at Xian. Her eyes flashed with hostility. Damn human, die. As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly turned into a flame and swooped down from the starry sky. Rumble. A terrifying power that could destroy heaven and earth swept down from the starry sky. At this moment, even the strong cultivators in the reincarnation walker realm could not help but tremble. A tremor that came from the depths of one's soul. Below, Xian raised his head and looked at the fire phoenix swooping down. His expression was incomparably grave. This power had far surpassed the reincarnation walker realm. At this moment he had no way out. He held the sword tightly in his right hand, and in the next moment he suddenly shot into the sky and slashed through the sky. Sword cleaving the heavens. Rumble. Suddenly, an expanse of sword light and flames erupted from the depths of the starry sky, and then a figure retreated explosively for over 100 kilometers away. This person was Xian. As soon as Xian stopped, his body began to melt. The expressions of Dao Ling and the others changed drastically when they saw this. They were about to make a move, but they were stopped by the experts from the Demon Sky clan. In the distance, Xian looked at his melted body in shock. The temperature of the flames was too terrifying. Even the sword in his hand had melted. In the sky, Evil Lotus did not have it easy either. Xian's sword had seriously injured her. If she had not used her own flames to block it, she would have been wiped out if Xian's sword had hit her. Terrifying. Xian and Evil Lotus looked at each other, and their eyes were filled with undisguised seriousness. Both sides were afraid of each other. At this moment, Xian activated the Immortal bloodline and took out a handful of elixirs to consume. These elixirs had been given to him by Xianxia a long time ago and they still had their uses. With the help of the elixirs and the Immortal bloodline, his body gradually returned to normal. However, the temperature in the starry sky was getting higher and higher. In the starry sky, Evil Lotus stared fixedly at Xian with undisguised killing intent in her eyes. Xian was young and monstrous and she was deeply afraid of him. If she did not kill Xian today, Xian would definitely pose a threat to the Demon Sky clan in the future. No, Xian was already capable of posing a threat to the Demon Sky clan now. Without any hesitation, Evil Lotus suddenly vanished on the spot. Boom. In the starry sky, a wave of fire swept down towards Xian. Rumble. In an instant, the starry sky within a few million zhang was completely incinerated into nothingness. Down below, Yi Xian suddenly raised his head, and a wisp of hostility flashed in his eyes. In the next moment, the blood in his body suddenly boiled. Boom! A strand of bloodline power shot up into the sky from her body. Bloodline power. He did not dare to hold back in the face of Evil Lotus' terrifying attack, and he immediately activated the bloodline power. Rumble. The powerful bloodline power caused his aura to instantly skyrocket. Yi Xian suddenly transformed into a blood-red sword radiance that soared into the sky and slashed at the flame. Rumble. In an instant, the flame and sword radiance exploded. Then Yi Xian and Evil Lotus retreated at the same time, and both of them retreated hundreds of zhang away. As soon as Evil Lotus stopped, several sword radiances silently slashed at her. However, the sword radiances were directly incinerated into nothingness before they could even get close to her. Seeing this, Yi Xian's face instantly sank. At this moment he finally realized that the flame emitted by Evil Lotus was too terrifying, and it was so terrifying that he could not get close to her at all. In this way she was practically in an invincible position, because he could not use the slash into nothingness that was a threat to her endlessly. Every time he used it, it would consume a huge amount of energy. Apart from the slash into nothingness, his other sword techniques could not threaten this woman at all. In the starry sky, Evil Lotus's eyes suddenly narrowed slightly. Your bloodline. Obviously she'd noticed the uniqueness of Yi Xian's bloodline. Yi Xian was just about to speak when a wisp of greed suddenly flashed through her eyes. If I devour your bloodline, then my strength will definitely increase greatly. As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly plunged down towards Yi Xian. A wisp of viciousness flashed through Yi Xian's eyes. He opened his palm and a blood-red sword suddenly appeared in his hand. In the next moment he suddenly charged into the sky with his sword in hand. The slash of the heavens. Bang! A blood-red ray of light slashed directly onto the flames around Evil Lotus. Rumble. Countless flames sputtered as Evil Lotus was directly slashed back by Yi Xian's sword strike, and the flames around her had become much dimmer by Yi Xian's sword strike. However, the blood-red sword in Yi Xian's hand actually hadn't vanished. Disbelief instantly appeared in Evil Lotus's eyes when she witnessed this scene. How could this be possible? Yi Xian was slightly surprised as well. He hadn't expected that the sword condensed from his blood would actually be able to resist her flames. Yi Xian raised his head to look at Evil Lotus in the distance and then he grinned, again. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly vanished on the spot. A blood-red ray of light slashed directly towards Evil Lotus. This time it was the slash of nothingness. The energy of his bloodline coupled with the slash of nothingness. It could be said to be an attack that Yi Xian had executed with his full strength. Evil Lotus didn't dare be careless or underestimate Yi Xian in the slightest when facing this sword strike that Yi Xian had executed with his full strength. She suddenly let out a furious howl, and a terrifying wave of flames swept out from within her body. Subsequently she dove down from the starry sky. At the same time she opened her enormous mouth with the intention of swallowing Yi Xian in a single gulp. Yi Xian suddenly roared with laughter. In the next moment she suddenly stomped her right foot on the ground and transformed into a blood-red ray of light that shot into the sky. Rumble. Suddenly, a blood-red ray of light exploded apart, and then Yi Xian retreated explosively for over 100 kilometers. On the other hand, Evil Lotus hurriedly retreated explosively as well. She retreated for over 100 kilometers and as soon as she stopped moving, the flames around her were instantly transformed into nothingness. Slash of nothingness. Even the flames around Evil Lotus were unable to resist this terrifying slash of nothingness. At this moment, besides shock, there was deep fear in Evil Lotus's heart. Actually, Yi Xian's strength wasn't terrifying, and it was that sword technique of his that was terrifying. That sword technique was too terrifying. After all, even a rebirth traveler wouldn't dare to rashly touch the might of her flames. However, Yi Xian's bloodline had actually been able to resist it. Most importantly, Yi Xian's attack had been able to destroy her flames. That was extremely absurd. Below, Yi Xian's entire body was covered in blood. Even though he'd activated his bloodline, he hadn't completely lost his mind. He looked at Evil Lotus in the distance and grinned. Again. As he spoke, he suddenly leaped up and slashed with the blood-red sword with both hands. A wave of sword light shot out like a waterfall. A wisp of viciousness flashed in Evil Lotus's eyes, and she suddenly leaped up and directly collided with Zhou Xian. Moreover, the terrifying pitch-black flames condensed again around her, and as soon as the powerful flames appeared, the temperature in the surroundings instantly increased by a few hundred times. Rumble. A wave of blood-red rays of light suddenly shattered, and Zhou Xian retreated explosively once more while Evil Lotus retreated repeatedly. As she retreated explosively, the flames on her body were visibly vanishing. In the distance while Zhou Xian was retreating explosively, his body started to melt bit by bit again. His sword could resist the flames but his body couldn't. Zhou Xian hurriedly circulated his undying bloodline, and then he fed himself over 10 medicinal pills. Zhou Xian's body gradually returned to normal under the effects of the bloodline energy and medicinal pills. On the other hand, Evil Lotus's face instantly sank. What the hell are you? You have 2 more bloodlines. Zhou Xian glanced coldly at her. Can't I? Evil Lotus stared fixedly at Zhou Xian as if she wanted to skin Zhou Xian alive. But at the same time she was very clearly aware that she couldn't do anything to Zhou Xian. Needless to say she felt slightly helpless. This young man's cultivation realm was much lower than her, but his combat strength wasn't inferior to her. So, continuing the battle would only be a waste of time. When she thought up to here she slowly closed her eyes. Come out. As soon as she finished speaking, 2 extremely terrifying auras suddenly swept over from the distant starry sky. Zhou Xian's expression instantly changed when he witnessed this scene. Woman, what do you want to do? I'm telling you, let's fight one-on-one. Don't do something so shameless as ganging up on me. Damn it. Evil Lotus stared at Zhou Xian. I want to ganging up on you. Bite me. Zhou Xian glanced at Evil Lotus and asked, how do I bite you? Evil Lotus instantly flew into a rage. You pervert. You're shameless. Zhou Xian was speechless. 7017K. Chapter 2282. Needless to say, Zhou Xian was completely dumbfounded. What the hell? Meanwhile, Black Lotus didn't waste his breath and charged at Zhou Xian. At the same time, 2 extremely terrifying and powerful auras smashed down towards Zhou Xian. These 2 auras were only slightly weaker than Black Lotus. Zhou Xian's face fell when he saw this. A group fight. Damn it. These fellows are really shameless. Zhou Xian turned to look at Dao Ling and the others. At this moment, Dao Ling and the others were being held back by the members of the Demon Sky clan and had no time to care about him. Flee. He rejected this thought as soon as it appeared in his mind. If he fled, then Dao Ling and the others would be finished. I can't flee. Zhou Xian's face was extremely unsightly as he looked at Evil Lotus and the other 2 who were charging at him. However, he didn't retreat. He had to bear the consequences at a time like this. Zhou Xian closed his eyes slowly and the blood in his body started to boil. Bang! In an instant Zhou Xian was covered in blood. He didn't dare to ignite his bloodline and soul. He couldn't do this without the green profound sword. Zhou Xian suddenly raised his head to look at Evil Lotus and the other 2. In the next moment he stomped his right foot and transformed into a ray of light that shot out explosively. Rumble! The powerful sword energy instantly shattered the starry sky. Bang! As an explosion resounded, Zhou Xian was blasted hundreds of kilometers away. As soon as he stopped, his body was destroyed by the powerful attacks of Evil Lotus and the other 2. Only his soul remained. Zhou Xian's face was extremely unsightly when he stopped. He could still fight one of them but he couldn't fight 3 of them at all. It was too ridiculous. He didn't even ignite his soul or blood. In the distance, Evil Lotus looked at Zhou Xian and said, What? Why haven't you called for help? Actually, she'd always been on guard. Why? Because she knew that there was an enormous force behind Zhou Xian, and it was precisely because of this that she'd always been secretly on guard in her heart. She was afraid that the person behind Zhou Xian would suddenly make a move and catch her off guard. However, what surprised her was that the person behind Zhou Xian had not shown any sign of showing up since the beginning of the fight. Could it be that they were afraid of the Demon Sky clan and didn't dare to make a move? Thinking about this, Evil Lotus squinted her eyes and the uneasiness in her heart gradually disappeared. In the distance, Zhou Xian was silent. Call for help. Who should I call? Call me father? There might not be a chance. Tinger? He felt a little embarrassed. After all, he had boasted in front of her that he had to rely on himself. Not going to scream? He would probably be beaten to death. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and then he said, "If you don't gang up on me then I won't call for help. What do you think?" Huh. Evil Lotus suddenly laughed. Yi Xian frowned slightly. What was wrong with this woman? Evil Lotus laughed even more crazily. After a moment she looked at Yi Xian with excitement and mockery in her eyes. "Yi Xian, if I'm not wrong, the force behind you is just an ordinary force. Therefore they don't dare to become enemies with the Demon Sky clan. Am I right?" Yi Xian was silent. Evil Lotus stared at Yi Xian and became even more excited. "Come, call for help. Call for help right now." Yi Xian was speechless. At this moment Dao Ling, who was being attacked wildly in the distance, suddenly said in a trembling voice, "Brother Yi, just listen to her and call for help." In the distance Shi Tian hurriedly nodded. "Sure. Call. That's not too much. They were the ones who didn't care about martial ethics first." Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and then he sighed softly. He took out the Xian ring and said, "Actually, I really don't want to rely on my family." Dao Ling hurriedly said, "Understood, we all understand. This woman is the one who asked you to call for help. It has nothing to do with you. Brother Yi, don't feel burdened. If you really can't do it, I can take the blame." Yi Xian said in a low voice, "But I feel that this kind of life is meaningless. What's the point of calling for help if you can't beat someone?" Dao Ling said in a trembling voice, "They already ganged up on you. Why do you still care about this?" Yi Xian said seriously, "But this way I will become dependent. If I encounter any problems in the future I will think of calling for help. If this goes on I will become a second-generation heir." Dao Ling looked at Yi Xian in shock. "Brother Yi, do you still think that you are not a second-generation heir?" Yi Xian said in a low voice, "I have relied on myself most of the time." Dao Ling and the others were speechless. At this moment Evil Lotus suddenly said sarcastically, "Relied on yourself? Yi Xian, I was afraid of you. After all, a genius like you must have someone backing you. But now it seems that you just got lucky and got Daoist's favor. That's why you have the strength you have today." As she spoke she glanced at Yi Xian and then she said, "Your bloodline is quite interesting. Your ancestor should have been a peerless powerhouse. But now he has declined. Am I right?" Yi Xian fell silent. Evil Lotus continued, "Do it. Don't kill him." As she spoke she suddenly disappeared on the spot. Rumble. In an instant the spacetime around Yi Xian started burning. Then terrifying flames surrounded the spacetime where Yi Xian was like a cage. At the same time the other two mysterious experts sealed the area where Yi Xian was with terrifying power. Yi Xian frowned. Does she intend to trap me? Yi Xian didn't think too much about it. He leaped up and slashed down with his sword. Slash through the void. A terrifying force tore the flames into nothingness. At the same time, the mysterious energy around him was eliminated as well. A wisp of rage flashed through Evil Lotus' eyes when she witnessed this scene. "Yi Xian, I'll give you one last chance. If you don't call for help then I'll swallow you right now." Yi Xian was quite puzzled. "Why do you want me to call for help? Have you gone mad? Can't you just bully me?" Evil Lotus stared fixedly at Yi Xian and didn't speak. Meanwhile Dao Ling spoke abruptly, "Brother Yi, she's taken a fancy to your bloodline. She wants to devour the bloodline of your Yang clan." Bloodline? Yi Xian was stunned when he heard that. He'd actually forgotten about that. After all, his bloodline was very special and it was very useful to demonic beasts. Obviously, Evil Lotus had taken a fancy to his bloodline. To be more precise, she had taken a fancy to the bloodline of his Yang clan. Evil Lotus stared at Yi Xian with excitement. But she looked at Yi Xian as if she was looking at a great opportunity. Yi Xian's bloodline made her extremely excited. Her instinct told her that if she could devour Yi Xian's bloodline, then she might even be able to reach another level and reach another height. What would it mean if she found the clan behind Yi Xian? It meant that the Demon Sky clan would rise completely and reach a new height. Moreover, she had another plan. She planned to rear Yi Xian's entire clan so that they could provide an endless supply of bloodline to the Demon Sky clan. It was like rearing pigs. Fatten them up before killing them. The more she thought about it, the more excited she became. She seemed to be able to see the beautiful scene of the Demon Sky clan rising completely and dominating the world. In the distance Yi Xian was silent. He was quite shocked as well. He's actually targeting the Yang clan. Meanwhile, Evil Lotus suddenly glanced at Dao Ling and the others and then she said, "Yi Xian, if you don't call for help, then I'll kill all of your friends right here in front of you. Yi Xian glanced at her. Are you sure you want me to call for help? She stared fixedly at Yi Xian. I beg you. Yi Xian nodded slightly. All right. As soon as he finished speaking, he opened his palm and the dark ring appeared there. In the next moment, the dark ring started trembling slightly. It didn't take long for a ray of light to tear through space and arrive here. After that, an old man appeared by Yi Xian's side. The person who had arrived was none other than Senior Jun. Elder Jun bowed slightly to Yi Xian. Young master. Yi Xian glanced at Evil Lotus and then he said, She's looking for all of you. Elder Jun glanced at Evil Lotus, and her eyes narrowed slightly when she saw Elder Jun while a trace of vigilance arose in her heart. How strong. This old man before me is extremely extraordinary. Elder Jun gazed at Evil Lotus with a calm expression when he heard Yi Xian. Looking for us? Evil Lotus gazed at Elder Jun. Who are you? At this moment she was slightly more vigilant. Elder Jun's face was emotionless. The Yang clan. Evil Lotus frowned slightly. The Yang clan. As she spoke, she glanced at Yi Xian. What's the relationship between the Yang clan and that fellow with the surname Yi? Yi Xian was speechless. Elder Jun fell silent. He was very puzzled as well. Why is the young master called Yi Xian and not Yang Xian? If Yi Xian didn't possess the Mad Devil bloodline, he would even think that Yi Xian wasn't the Sword Master's biological son. Evil Lotus suddenly said, Which universe is the Yang clan located in? Elder Jun gazed at her with a calm expression. What are you doing? Evil Lotus pointed at Yi Xian. Your young master killed the experts of my demon sky race. What do you think about this? On the surface she seemed to be questioning Yi Xian, but she was actually trying to find out the truth. In the beginning she'd thought that while Yi Xian had a power behind him, it definitely wasn't strong. Because this power hadn't made an appearance and Yi Xian hadn't called for help. So she'd felt that the power behind Yi Xian was probably ordinary, and it wouldn't dare to go against the demon sky race head-on. However, after Elder Jun appeared, she wasn't so sure about her earlier thoughts. Elder Jun was too calm when facing her and the demon sky race. How could a reincarnator be so calm? It was very simple. He was fearless and didn't fear the demon sky race. Moreover, Elder Jun's appearance caused a trace of uneasiness to arise in her heart. Because she'd never seen Elder Jun before. Under normal circumstances, it was impossible for her to not know an expert of such a level. What did this mean? It meant that the power behind Yi Xian was from a universe that the demon sky race had never come into contact with. After all the top-notch experts of the demon sky race were here, but Yi Xian hadn't taken them seriously at all. At this moment she'd completely calmed down. Elder Jun's expression was still calm when he heard Evil Lotus. So be it. What do you want me to think about it? The experts of the demon sky race behind Evil Lotus were instantly furious. However, Evil Lotus's pupils constricted, and she was shocked in her heart. She hurriedly looked at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, my demon sky race has offended you in the past. No. I apologize to you on behalf of the demon sky race. Please forgive me. Everyone present was stunned. Apologize. Admit defeat. Yi Xian was slightly stunned as well. He looked at Evil Lotus, who'd been boundlessly arrogant just a moment ago. No? Don't play by the rules. I'm not used to what you're doing. Come, hit me. My bloodline is very good. Devour my bloodline and you'll be able to improve. Come on. I won't resist. The crowd was speechless. 7017K. Chapter 2283. Evil Lotus shook her head at Yi Xian's words. No. Young Master Yi, it was our clan's fault. I apologize to young Master Yi on behalf of our clan. She bowed slightly as she spoke. Yi Xian looked at Evil Lotus in silence. Dao Ling walked up to Yi Xian. He glanced at Evil Lotus and felt a little strange. Is this woman a different person? Yi Xian didn't respond. He knew that Evil Lotus must have noticed something, so she changed her attitude right away and admitted defeat. He had to admit that this woman was a tough one. She was able to let go of things at the same time. Yi Xian turned to look at Old Master Jun. The old man hesitated for a bit and said, Young Master, I'll listen to you. If you want to destroy the Fei Sky Clan, I'll do it right away. Hearing Old Master Jun's words, Yao Lian's expression changed drastically. She looked at Old Master Jun in the distance with eyes filled with disbelief. Arrogant? No. Her instincts told her that the old man wasn't arrogant. He was confident. Undefeatable confidence. What kind of terrifying force is this? Evil Lotus was shocked. Yi Xian looked at Old Master Jun in silence. Old Master Jun's words were interesting. Boss Jun could destroy the Fey Sky clan right away, but Old Master Jun didn't do so. Instead he asked Yi Xian. It was obvious that Old Master Jun didn't want to do it. Seeing Yi Xian's silence, Old Master Jun was afraid that Yi Xian would overthink, so he said in a hurry, "Young master." Yi Xian shook his head. "I know. Father doesn't want me to rely on the clan too much." Old Master Jun nodded and said softly, "Master Jun?" "He did." Yi Xian smiled. "Old Master Jun, I'd like to see my father." Old Master Jun was dumbfounded. Yi Xian said again, "Contact him for me." It was a commanding tone. Old Master Jun didn't dare to refuse. He opened his palm and a sword token shot into the sky. Boom. A sword aura appeared in the sky all of a sudden. The next second, a man appeared in the sword aura. It was the azure-robed man. Seeing the green-robed man, Elder Jun immediately bowed deeply and said with a trembling voice, "Greetings, Sword Master." At the instant she saw the green-clothed man, Yao Lian's expression instantly changed violently. Danger. This was how she felt at the moment. Who was this green-robed man in front of him? Evil Lotus was extremely shocked. Why did he just stand there and give her a formless oppressive feeling? Moreover, that feeling was as if she was an ant. The green-robed man looked at Yi Xian and smiled. "Looking for me?" Yi Xian nodded. "Can we have a chat?" The green-robed man nodded. "Sure." Yi Xian said seriously, "When father and son are talking, don't fight, okay?" The azure-robed man smiled and said, "Sure, come, let's chat." Yi Xian suddenly asked, "Dad, have you ever relied on Grandpa?" The green-robed man looked at Yi Xian without saying a word. Yi Xian asked again, "Father, if it wasn't for grandfather's help, would you have survived back then?" The green-robed man was silent. Yi Xian pointed at Evil Lotus in the distance. "Do you think I'm a normal enemy?" The green-robed man chuckled. "I understand what you mean. You're dissatisfied. Dissatisfied that I let you live, right?" Yi Xian shook his head. "You're wrong. Father, I'm not dissatisfied with you. I'm just a little disappointed." The green-robed man squinted his eyes. "Disappointed?" Yi Xian nodded. "I'm your son. But forgive me for being blunt. You didn't play the role of a father well. I've never felt a father's love since I was young. I don't even have the concept of a father. Yes, I've suffered since I was young. This hardship has tempered my willpower and sharpened my mind." As he spoke, he shook his head and smiled. "But I feel that a person's life shouldn't only be filled with hardship. There should be affection, love, friendship, and father-son relationship. Father, do you think you've fulfilled the responsibility of a father?" The green-robed man was silent. Yi Xian continued. "You hope that I can face all difficulties. That's right. But you've never thought of a problem. That is this difficulty something I can bear now?" As he spoke, he smiled. "What do we father and son look like now? You hope that one day I can reach your height or even surpass you. This is your expectation for me. Then, besides this, what else is there between us, father and son?" The green-robed man was silent. Yi Xian smiled. "Speaking of you, father, I feel that I'm a little sad. Because my memories of the past are of you. Without you, it's a blank." The green-robed man's right hand trembled slightly. Yi Xian continued. "I don't hate you. Because I understand your life. You rose from hardship. You believe that hardship can sharpen one's mind, allowing one to mature and become a talent. So you don't wish for me to become a second generation. You wish for me to rise from hardship as well." As he spoke to this point, he shook his head and smiled. "You made me feel warmth and kinship. But father, you make me feel unfamiliar. We're not like father and son. We're more like master and disciple. You want me to be you, but I'm not you. I used to see other people's parents shielding them from the wind and rain. I was very envious. When I encountered a strong enemy, I did my best to finish them off. But I also hoped that someone would say to me, 'Don't be afraid. Even if the sky falls, father will carry it.'" As he spoke, he looked at the green-robed man. "Father, I will work hard. I will work even harder. I will surpass you. But I have to tell you that you're not a qualified father. I want to learn from you. If I had a son, I wouldn't let him be. I would accompany him and let him have a complete family. Companionship is very important. Because the relationship between father and son shouldn't be cold and heartless. The green-robed man looked at Zhou Xian. A trace of guilt flashed in the depths of his eyes. After a long time he sighed. His lips moved, wanting to express his apology. But he had always wanted to be strong. He had never spoken softly to anyone. For a moment the words that were on the tip of his tongue were stuck in his throat. Zhou Xian said with a smile, "Dad, just go. For the rest of the road I will walk it properly and do my best to walk it." The green-robed man spoke in a light voice. "Don't blame me, all right?" Zhou Xian fell silent. The green-robed man walked slowly over to Zhou Xian. He patted Zhou Xian lightly on the shoulder and said, "I know I was very cruel to you. What I did all those years ago was wrong. Because just as you said, I rose from suffering. So, I want you to be like me." When he spoke up to here, he shook his head. "But I had no choice. Because no one taught me how to be a good father. What did your grandfather do to me all those years ago? He directly left me on profounder continent. If I didn't have a long life later on, I wouldn't even know that I had a father. If you want to blame and hate, then blame your grandfather. It was he who set the precedent and caused such a bad atmosphere in our Yang clan." Yang Wudi was speechless. Zhou Xian was speechless. "Damn it. This father is really inhuman. He directly threw the blame to me. The problem is, how can he throw the blame to me?" The green-robed man continued. "I admit that I didn't do a good job when you said accompany me. But you have to be considerate of your father. If you feel it's difficult and bitter, then think about me all those years ago. Wasn't I miserable all those years ago? Wasn't I miserable? I was miserable too. Your father had a pile of enemies all those years ago. Look at our bloodline, how did it come about? It was me, your father, who killed all those years ago." When he spoke up to here, he sighed in a low voice. "Everyone by your side is still there. But do you know what happened to your father all those years ago? Father went missing, mother died, and I was all alone. It was difficult for your father." Zhou Xian was speechless. The green-robed man continued. "You say your enemies are abnormal, but are my enemies normal? Not to mention anything else, do you think Tianming was normal all those years ago? Wasn't it abnormal as well? But didn't you get through it? You see that I'm invincible now, but you didn't see how much pain I suffered all those years ago. I had a tough life too." Zhou Xian's face darkened. "Damn it. Why is something wrong? You make it sound like I'm your father." The green-robed man turned to look at Evil Lotus. "I want to help you too. But think about it. Your father traveled across billions of star fields just to kill someone of this level. That's embarrassing. Take you for example. Your friend in Qingqing asked you to travel millions of star fields just to kill an ant. How do you feel about that?" Zhou Xian was dumbfounded by what he heard. On the other hand, the expressions of Yao Lian and the others instantly became extremely unsightly. But in the green-robed man's eyes, their clan leader was an ant? The Fey Sky clan's experts were burning with anger. They were about to explode, but Evil Lotus stopped them with a look. The people behind her could not see how terrifying the green-robed man was, but she could see that the green-robed man was not someone that she and the Fey Sky clan could fight against. If they fought, they would definitely be able to exterminate their clan. They had to endure. They had to endure. Because of Evil Lotus. Although the Fey Sky clan's experts were unhappy, they did not dare to do anything. In the Fey Sky clan, Evil Lotus had absolute authority. In the distance, the green-robed man smiled. "Little fella, I just remembered something. I once obtained a treasure and wanted to give it to you. However, I never had the chance. Now I finally have the chance." As he spoke, he opened his palm and a sword appeared in front of Zhou Xian. Zhou Xian was curious. "This?" The green-robed man smiled. "I picked up. I found a sword for you. This is custom-made for you. It's a supreme-grade godly sword. It suits you very well. Keep it." Zhou Xian, the green-robed man continued. "This is your first time and my first time. Let's not ask for too much. After all, it's our first time. Let's just make do with each other. Do a good job. I won't forget you. Alright, I have something to do. I have to go. You, do a good job. You can do it. I believe in you." With that, he turned around and disappeared. In the field, Zhou Xian was a little confused. What the hell? P.S. Do you think the 5th chapter is over? Naive. 7017K. Chapter 2284. Left. Zhou Xian was still in a state of confusion. His words just now seemed to have been referring to loneliness. As if something had occurred to him, Yi Xian hurriedly looked at the sword in his hand. The sword was 3 feet long and 2 fingers wide. It was entirely black with a thin blade and a dark red tip. Judging from its appearance, it did not look beautiful at all. After Yi Xian carefully looked at it, the Xian energy in his body surged. The sword slightly trembled. A sword hummed soared into the sky and into the depths of the starry sky. Soon Yi Xian slightly frowned because he discovered that this sword did not have a spirit. A sword without a spirit. That should not be the case. Yi Xian studied it again and finally accepted the truth. This really was a sword without a spirit. Yi Xian was speechless. Did father specially find this sword for me? He was slightly suspicious of this now. At this moment, Elder Jun suddenly bowed slightly. Young master, do you have any other instructions? Yi Xian retracted his thoughts and looked at Elder Jun. He thought for a moment and said, Do you have money? Elder Jun's expression froze. Yi Xian quickly said, Borrow. I'm borrowing, not taking. When the time comes, you can ask my father for reimbursement. Elder Jun was speechless. Reimbursement? Reimbursement my ass. Who doesn't know the relationship between young master and the sword master? If I lend it to you, will the sword master acknowledge it? At that time, if the sword master doesn't acknowledge it and young master acts shamelessly, wouldn't my universe veins be wasted? This transaction cannot be done. Elder Jun thought for a moment and said, Young master. I don't have many universe veins. However, since young master needs them, I am willing to give young master 1 million universe veins. With that he quickly said, This is for young master, there is no need to return it. Rather than saying borrow, it was better to say give. In any case, he wouldn't return it even if he borrowed it. By saying give, he could sell a favor. Hearing Elder Jun's words, Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and said, This, directly giving it to me, isn't that not good? Elder Jun was silent. If you know it's not good, then don't take it. At this time Yi Xian suddenly said, Since this is Senior Jun's kind intention, if I refuse, wouldn't it disappoint Senior Jun's heart? As he spoke, he stretched out his right hand. Old man Jun was speechless. You don't want to disappoint me, but my heart hurts. Mr. Jun was very straightforward. He took out a storage ring and handed it to Yi Xian. Yi Xian glanced at it and quickly accepted it. Then he bowed slightly. Thank you, Elder Jun. When I see my father, I'll make him return it to you. Old man Jun blurted out, He won't. At this point he hurriedly corrected himself. What I mean is, you don't have to return it, you don't have to return it. Yi Xian smiled. Thank you, Senior. Elder Jun nodded. Young master, take care. After speaking, he turned to leave. Yi Xian suddenly said, Senior, can you show me the way? After a moment of silence, old man Jun said, Go to the realm of gods. That is the stage for young masters. In this place it's just a small fight. It's meaningless. As he spoke, he took out a scroll and handed it to Yi Xian. This is the map of the realm of gods. Yi Xian put the map away and smiled. Thank you. Old man Jun smiled and whispered, The mystic sect is there. Young master, you can go and inherit the family property. Young master, we will meet again. As he spoke, he bowed slightly and disappeared into the depths of the starry sky. Inherit the family property? Yi Xian blinked his eyes. I don't have to go and get beaten up? At this moment, 20 extremely dreadful super strong people showed up next to Yi Xian. The mysterious leader bowed slightly. Young master, we will report to you in 2 hours. Obviously, this was left for him to deal with the Fey Sky clan. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian turned to look at Evil Lotus in the distance. Evil Lotus's expression was calm. No one knew what she was thinking. Evil Lotus's expression changed when she saw Yi Xian looking at her. She knew that the survival of the Fey Sky clan was in the hands of this young man. She had to admit that it was a little sad. She never thought that one day her life would be in the hands of someone else. Yi Xian suddenly said, Tianqi's mother. Evil Lotus quickly turned her head. Bring her here. One of the experts of the Fey Sky clan hurriedly retreated. Soon a woman was brought to the scene. The woman's face was a little pale and her body was thin. When she saw Tianqi, she was slightly stunned. In the next moment, her body trembled and tears flowed down her cheeks. Tianqi was also looking at the woman. He clenched his fists tightly and tears glistened in his eyes. At this time, the woman trembled as she walked to Tianqi. She stretched out her trembling hand towards Tianqi's face. When she was about to touch Tianqi's face, she suddenly hugged him. Tears gushed out of the woman's eyes like a broken dam. She cried silently. At the side, Evil Lotus's expression was calm. No one knew what she was thinking. Tianqi's body was stiff and he was a little uncomfortable. Gradually he hugged the woman. After a long time, the woman turned her head to look at Zhou Xian and said softly, "Thank you." She already knew that Evil Lotus had compromised because of this man. Zhou Xian nodded slightly and looked at Evil Lotus. Evil Lotus bowed slightly. "Young Master Yi," Zhou Xian suddenly said, "kill him." Evil Lotus was stunned. Zhou Xian blinked his eyes. "You can't be so naive to think that I'll let you go after you apologize, right? Don't joke around. If apologizing was useful, why would I still cultivate?" As soon as Zhou Xian's voice fell, the experts beside him immediately rushed out. In the distance, Evil Lotus's expression was calm. It was abnormally calm. Seeing this, Zhou Xian frowned slightly. At this time, Evil Lotus suddenly disappeared. Gone. Zhou Xian was stunned. At this time, the leading old man beside Zhou Xian suddenly said, "Young master, this woman fled when the sword master left. What we saw just now was just a projection of her." Zhou Xian said in a low voice, "Can you catch up to her?" The old man looked around and shook his head. "I can't feel it." Hearing this, Zhou Xian's expression darkened. At this time, Tianqi's mother suddenly said, "She's from the demonic Phoenix clan." Zhou Xian looked at the woman. "Demonic Phoenix clan?" The woman nodded. "An ancient clan. Although they aren't as strong as before, they aren't weak." Zhou Xian shook his head. "She won't go back." After a moment of silence, the woman said softly, "That's true." Zhou Xian glanced at the experts of the Moon Devil Sky clan. Their expressions changed drastically when they saw Zhou Xian look over, and their eyes were filled with fear. Zhou Xian fell silent for a moment, and then he gazed at Tianqi and the woman. "Tianqi, do you intend to stay here?" Tianqi was slightly stunned, and then he gazed at the woman. She held Tianqi's hand tightly. Tianqi lowered his head slightly. Zhou Xian walked up to Tianqi and said with a smile, "Stay here and keep your mother company." As he spoke, he glanced at the experts of the Moon Devil Sky clan who stood behind Tianqi. Meanwhile, one of them hurriedly stepped forward. "From this moment onward, Tianqi is the patriarch of our Moon Devil Sky clan." Patriarch. The experts of the Moon Devil Sky clan hurriedly chimed in. They weren't fools, so they naturally understood that if they didn't want Zhou Xian to kill them, then there was only one way, and that was to make Tianqi the patriarch. Only then would the Moon Devil Sky clan be able to avoid this calamity. Zhou Xian glanced coldly at the experts of the Sky Forsaken clan. How could he not understand their intentions? However, he couldn't be bothered to care about them out of respect for Tianqi. After all, he couldn't just slaughter all of them and make Tianqi a commander without an army, right? Zhou Xian gazed at Tianqi and smiled. "Come look for me in the world of the gods when you're free." As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Meanwhile, Tianqi suddenly said, "Big brother." Zhou Xian turned around and gazed at Tianqi. Tianqi strode over to Zhou Xian, hesitated for a moment, and then withdrew a spatial ring and placed it in Zhou Xian's hand. There were over 10 roasted goats within the spatial ring. Zhou Xian was speechless at the sight of this. "You should have just given me some money." To the goats. He'd intended to rob the Moon Devil Sky clan clean. They'd almost killed him, so he naturally couldn't let them off so easily. However, he hadn't done that because of Tianqi. "I should leave some for this fellow." Zhou Xian still didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he gazed at the spatial ring. He put it away and patted Tianqi's shoulder lightly. "Take care." As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left with Shi Tian and the others. As he watched Zhou Xian and the others leave, Tianqi gazed up into the sky, and his gaze gradually lost focus. At this moment, his heart felt empty. On the other side in the starry sky, Zhou Xian gazed at Dao Ling and the others and smiled. "What about the rest of you?" Shi Tian fell silent for a moment before he said, "I want to return to the Shi clan. I haven't returned for a long time." Zhou Xian nodded. "It's only right." As he spoke, he looked at Dao Ling. Dao Ling smiled and said, "I also want to go back and have a look. It's been too long since I've been out." Zhou Xian smiled and turned to look at Xianxia. Xianxia was silent for a moment before he said, "I want to rebuild the evil spirit race." Zhou Xian smiled and said, "In that case, we brothers will have to split up." Temporarily. Shi Tian suddenly said, "We will go to the divine realm to look for you." Dao Ling also said, "Yes, I hope you won't become weak when the time comes." Yi Xian laughed and said, "When you reach the divine realm, let's have a spar. What do you think?" Shi Tian smiled and said, "That's exactly what I wanted." Yi Xian nodded. "Let's go." Shi Tian nodded slightly. "Brothers will meet again." As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and disappeared into the starry sky. Dao Ling chuckled and walked in front of Yi Xian. He said seriously, "Brother Yi, can you lend me some time meridians? I will return them. I will definitely exchange them. I swear on my character." Yi Xian glared at Dao Ling angrily. "Fram. Hurry up and scram." Dao Ling. After Dao Ling was chased away, Yi Xian looked at Xianxia. Xianxia smiled and said, "Brother Yi, see you in the divine realm." As soon as he finished speaking, he also turned around and disappeared. Only Yi Xian was left in the field. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. Then he turned around and left. "Go to the divine realm." "Do what?" "Inherit the family property. Everyone says that I am a second-generation heir. Today I will not hide it anymore. Lay my cards on the table. I want to be a second-generation heir. Not only do I want to be a second-generation heir, I want to do it openly. Stupid things like getting beaten up in the next world must not happen again. This time I, Yi Xian, want to return as the king. All heavens and realms tremble." 7017K. Chapter 2285. Inheriting the family fortune. Yi Xian was delighted when he thought up to this point. He could finally stop being beaten up. Life wasn't just about fighting and killing. A happy life was about to begin. In the starry sky, Yi Xian gazed at the black-robed old man. "You're leaving?" The old man nodded. Yi Xian thought for a while. Then he said, "Who do you listen to, me and my father?" The old man's face froze. "That's a question of death." Yi Xian chuckled. "Is it very difficult to answer?" The black-robed old man laughed bitterly. "Young master, I'm an honest man." Yi Xian was at a loss for words. The black-robed old man hesitated for a moment and said, "Young master, feel free to let me know if you need anything." Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, "I'm afraid it won't be safe on this trip. Why don't all of you send me there?" The black-robed old man grinned. "It's not a big deal. We're willing to escort you there." Yi Xian nodded. "Thank you." The black-robed old man hurriedly said, "Young master, please don't say that. You're overpraising me." Yi Xian smiled and said, "Help me do something. Find that demon lotus from the Demon Sky clan." He naturally hadn't forgotten that woman. She was a woman who knew when to submit and when to stand tall. So if he didn't kill her, there would be future troubles for him. The black-robed old man bowed slightly. "Understood." As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Yi Xian opened his palm, and the sword his father had given him appeared in his hand. Yi Xian poured his profound energy into it, and the sword started trembling slightly. A short moment later, he frowned because he noticed that he still hadn't noticed anything special about it. Did my father make it for me? Yi Xian was quite puzzled. Is my father tricking me? Yi Xian's face sank when he thought up to this point, because he felt that it was entirely possible. My father isn't human sometimes. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian suddenly tried to devour the sword. However, he was shocked to find that he couldn't devour it. Yi Xian looked at the sword in his hand in disbelief. After all, only the Xianxian sword could resist the devouring of his invincible sword physique. And this sword could actually not be devoured by him. He had some skill. Yi Xian scrutinized the sword in his hand again. A moment later, he suddenly slashed with his sword. This sword strike directly tore a huge hole in the starry sky that was tens of thousands of feet away. Yi Xian frowned because this sword did not have any buffs. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian said, "Brother, do you want to show off?" There was no response. Yi Xian sighed softly. The sword was definitely extraordinary, but he didn't know how extraordinary it was. "What's wrong with my father? He gave me a sword in such a roundabout way." Yi Xian didn't continue thinking about it and put the sword away. Right at this moment, the black-robed old man suddenly appeared before Yi Xian. Yi Xian gazed at the black-robed old man. "You found it?" The black-robed old man nodded. Yi Xian's eyes narrowed slightly. "Did you kill him?" The black-robed old man hesitated for a moment and said, "No. Young master, you have to make a trip with me." Yi Xian frowned slightly. 15 minutes later, Yi Xian arrived at an expansive ruins under the black-robed old man's lead. He saw Evil Lotus within the ruins. She was still wearing a black dress, and there was a trace of maturity amidst her beauty. Evil Lotus turned around to look at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi." Yi Xian said, "You want to see me?" Evil Lotus nodded, "Yes." Yi Xian smiled and said, "You wouldn't be thinking of deceiving me, right?" Evil Lotus shook her head. "Young Master Ye's wisdom is unparalleled. No one can deceive you." Yi Xian smiled and said, "I'm slightly curious why you want to see me before you die." Evil Lotus looked at Yi Xian. "I'm the only one who died. Don't pursue the matter with my family and my son, alright?" Yi Xian fell silent. Evil Lotus grinned. "What I did in the past has nothing to do with them." Yi Xian still fell silent. Evil Lotus bowed slightly. "Thank you." Yi Xian smiled and said, "I haven't promised you." Evil Lotus smiled and said, "You will." Yi Xian frowned slightly. Evil Lotus continued, "Because young Master Yi is a person who distinguishes between kindness and hatred." Yi Xian shook his head. "Don't flatter me. Evil Lotus, don't make it seem like I'm a bad person. If I lost that day, then what would have happened to me?" After saying that, he turned and left. Evil Lotus continued, "Young Master Yi." In the distance, Yi Xian shook his head. "I'm not interested in listening to your nonsense. As for you wanting to live, I can tell you clearly that it's impossible. Even if I have to use 3 swords, I will kill you." "You?" Evil Lotus suddenly said. 10 million universe veins." Yi Xian suddenly stopped. He turned and looked at Evil Lotus. "I think it's better to squash enmity than keep it alive. We can talk." Beside Yi Xian, the black-robed old man couldn't help but turn and look at Yi Xian. His eyes were filled with shock. Evil Lotus looked at Yi Xian. 10 million universe veins to buy my life." Yi Xian was silent for a while and said, "The hatred between us can't be measured with money." Evil Lotus suddenly said, 15 million. 15 million. Yi Xian looked at Evil Lotus, and Evil Lotus' face was slightly pale. "This is the limit of what I can offer." Yi Xian opened his palm. Evil Lotus hesitated for a moment and said, "Will you take off your pants and deny it?" Yi Xian frowned slightly. "Do you think this analogy is suitable?" Evil Lotus was speechless. At this moment, a black-robed man appeared beside Evil Lotus and passed a spatial ring to her. Evil Lotus took the spatial ring and passed it to Yi Xian. At this moment, her heart was bleeding. 15 million universe veins. This was her lifetime savings. It wasn't just her lifetime savings, there was also the support of the Black Phoenix race. If it wasn't for the support of the Black Phoenix race, she wouldn't have been able to gather so many universe veins. And to the Black Phoenix god race, it was also a bloodbath. Yi Xian put the spatial ring away and turned to leave. The black-robed old man was stunned, and then he said, "Young Master Yi, kill or..." Yi Xian glanced at Evil Lotus. "Will you take revenge?" Evil Lotus immediately said, "I'll never take revenge until young Master Ye's father is dead." Yi Xian roared with laughter, and then he turned around and left. The black-robed old man hurriedly followed him. Yao Lian's expression eased up. "I'm alive." Meanwhile, the black-robed man hesitated for a moment and said, "Young miss, what you said just now." Evil Lotus looked towards the distance and spoke softly. "He definitely wouldn't believe me if I said I wouldn't take revenge. I was telling him that I want to take revenge, but I don't have the ability to do so." The black-robed man nodded. "I understand." As he spoke, he hesitated for a moment and said, "Then the Demon Sky race." Evil Lotus shook her head. "We've lost." As she spoke, she turned to look at the sky and spoke softly. "That green-clothed man is so strong that he instills despair in me. Even I feel despair now." The black-robed man frowned slightly, and he was slightly puzzled. "Young miss." Yi Xian was flying through the starry sky on his sword. He possessed 15 million universe veins. Needless to say, it was a huge sum of money to him. He had to have it, because he lacked universe veins the most right now. He was only at the time realm, and he wasn't even a ruler of time. There were reincarnators above the ruler of time, and there were even stronger reincarnators. Cultivation, however, required money. Meanwhile, the black-robed old man suddenly said, "Young master, do you know why that woman was able to survive?" Yi Xian frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" The black-robed old man spoke solemnly. "That woman wasn't simple at all. Actually, I wouldn't have been able to kill her by myself. Yi Xian gazed at the black-robed old man, and the black-robed old man spoke solemnly. She should have truly attained the profound enlightenment realm. Yi Xian spoke solemnly. The profound enlightenment realm? The black-robed old man nodded. Yi Xian sighed softly and placed his hands on his head. The black-robed old man hesitated for a moment, then said, "It seems that young master isn't familiar with this realm." "It doesn't matter, I will explain it to young master." Yi Xian suddenly said, "Stop." The black-robed old man was stunned. Yi Xian shook his head. "Don't talk about realms, I'm annoyed. *CK realms." After saying that, he turned and left. The black-robed old man. It had to be said that Yi Xian was really annoyed. There were too many realms. It was so many that he felt it was seriously abnormal. The realm system was so chaotic, it was too outrageous. He didn't know which idiot did this. Yi Xian was speechless. There was also Qin Guan. Didn't Qin Guan want to sort out her realms? He didn't know how she was doing. Although it was annoying, Yi Xian still had to understand this knowing destiny state. Under the black-robed old man's explanation, Yi Xian had some understanding of this realm. Profound enlightenment. It was to know the way of Daoist's operation. All things in the world, their destinies and trajectories were all operated by Daoist. And this profound enlightenment referred to being able to know the trajectory of Daoist. Daoist was now a direction. It was the cultivation direction of some top powerhouses. There was no one who didn't want to get rid of Daoist and transcend the way of fate. Yi Xian didn't cultivate this profound enlightenment realm, he wanted to take it slow. Steady. He had been too hasty in his previous cultivation, so he wanted to be steady now. Of course, the reason why he wanted to be steady was because he had the confidence. It was different from before. When he went to the next universe, he was basically beaten up. But this time was different. What was he going to do? He was going to inherit the family property. In the universe of gods, there was a huge family property waiting for him to inherit. This time he was going to act tough. Thinking of this, Yi Xian couldn't help but smile happily. At this moment he felt that this world was actually quite good. Life was beautiful everywhere. Not long after, Yi Xian and the rest arrived at the universe of gods. Somewhere in the starry sky, the black-robed old man bowed to Yi Xian. "Young master, the profound sect is not far ahead, we will take our leave." Yi Xian nodded. "Let's go." The black-robed old man bowed again and retreated. Yi Xian looked into the distance, smiled, then took out the profound ring and wore it. Then he walked into the distance. Not long after, Yi Xian arrived at the profound sect, and when he arrived he was stunned. At this moment he was standing on a small hillside. On the hillside not far from him there was a small hall. The hall was short and small. One of the doors was missing and the pillars on the side were peeling off. If it wasn't for the crooked signboard above the door that said, "Profound Sect," he would have thought that he had come to the wrong place. At this moment, a sloppy old man suddenly walked out, and when he saw Yi Xian he was slightly stunned, and when he saw Yi Xian his face instantly changed. Then he directly rushed in front of Yi Xian, hugged Yi Xian's legs and bawled, Young master, you're here. If you didn't come, the dozen of us in the profound sect would starve to death. Young master." As he cried, he suddenly twitched and then his eyes rolled back and he fell straight down. When Yi Xian saw this, he was immediately dumbfounded. This guy, he was actually starving to the point of death. At this moment, another 7 or 8 people rushed out, and when they saw Yi Xian they directly rushed in front of him, and like the old man they directly cried. Yi Xian took a look and he realized that these dozen people were actually ordinary people. All of them were ordinary people. Not a single cultivator. Yi Xian's mind was instantly dumbfounded. Yi Xian looked at the profound sect in the distance, and after a moment he suddenly raised his middle finger. "Old June, I'll hit your grandma's hammer." P.S. Chapter 7. What kind of joke is this? Is Chapter 7 worthy of my temperament? Chapter 7. Chapter 7. 7017K. Chapter 2286. Revenge. He knew that this was definitely old June's revenge. "Didn't I just cheat you of 1,000,000 universe veins? Do you have to do this?" Yi Xian was on the verge of collapse. What the hell? At this moment, the sloppy old man who was hugging Yi Xian suddenly said with a trembling voice, Young master, do you have anything to eat? I feel like I can't hold on." Yi Xian. After a while, Yi Xian stood in front of a statue in a dilapidated hall and was silent. This statue was his father's statue. It was also very dilapidated and incomplete. There was only one eye left. At the side, the sloppy old man and a dozen people were wolfing down their food. These people looked like they hadn't eaten for hundreds of years. The way they ate was scarier than heaven forsaking them. Xian looked at these people and was completely speechless. At this moment he felt that his life was incomparably dark. What the hell? After a while the sloppy old man and the others left after eating and drinking. The sloppy old man came in front of Xian and bowed deeply. "Young master." Xian nodded slightly and said, "Are you done eating?" The sloppy old man grinned. "I'm full." Xian smiled. "Tell me about the mystic sect and you guys." He felt that things shouldn't be so simple. Since these people were his father's people, they shouldn't be ordinary people. The sloppy old man hesitated and asked, "Young master, are you disappointed?" Xian looked at the sloppy old man and smiled. "Why do you say so?" The sloppy old man smiled bitterly. "Young master's expression and eyes are filled with disappointment. It is obvious that we are completely different from what young master had imagined." Xian nodded slightly. "I won't hide it from you. You guys are indeed a bit different from what I had imagined." The old tower old man smiled. "I understand." Saying that he bowed slightly. "Young master, follow me." Saying that he brought Xian and walked towards the side hall. Xian was curious and followed him. When the old man opened the door to the side hall, Xian was stunned. The inside of the side hall was very, very large. It was thousands of feet long and wide, and there were no less than 1,000,000 ancient scrolls placed inside. Library. Xian was stunned for a moment before he turned to look at the old man. "These are..." The sloppy old man said seriously, "Universe Encyclopedia." Xian frowned. "Universe Encyclopedia?" The old man nodded. "The 10 of us are responsible for writing the Universe Encyclopedia. There are many categories here. There's the civilization category, which records all the known civilizations in the universe. There's also the humanities category, the martial arts category, the realms category. In any case, other than Wuxia College, we have the most comprehensive and the most powerful." Xian was surprised. "Wuxia Academy?" The sloppy old man nodded. "Celestial Treasure Pavilion was founded by Pavilion Master Qin Guan." Hearing this, Xian shook his head and smiled. The sloppy old man suddenly wanted to say something but hesitated. Xian smiled and asked, "What's wrong?" The sloppy old man smiled bitterly. "To be honest, Sword Master hasn't given us a salary for more than 20 years. Xian was speechless. The sloppy old man's smile became even more bitter. "Young master." Xian asked, "How much do you get a year?" The sloppy old man said, "I get 100 universe veins a year. The rest get dozens of them a year." Xian was silent. The sloppy old man glanced at Xian and didn't dare to say anything else. Xian suddenly walked to a bookshelf at the side. Realms category. Xian was curious and picked up a thick ancient book. At this moment the sloppy old man suddenly said, "Inside are all the realms of the known universe." "All realms of the known universe." Xian nodded slightly and opened the ancient book. Four-dimensional universe. Body tempering realm, force training realm, internal strong realm, dual cultivation realm, endless realm, chi change realm, golden body realm, chi controlling realm, high sky realm, nether passage realm, divine combination realm, 10,000 dharma realm, true 10,000 dharma realm, law controlling realm, true law controlling realm, void piercing realm, origin realm, een realm, supreme realm, sage realm, creation realm, Dao realm, beginning Dao realm, knowing realm, Dao proving realm, Dao mastering realm, Tendo realm, emperor realm, god realm, end realm, peak end realm, seal ascension realm, unknown realm, creation realm, earth immortal realm, fate realm, life breaking realm, Dao seeking realm, Dao entry realm, Dao breaking realm, Dao extermination realm, five-dimensional universe. Origin realm, universe realm, yin-yang realm, life and death realm, heaven's legacy realm, karma realm, rebirth realm, sovereign realm, shattering void realm, origin return realm, void release realm, Dao breaking realm, Dao proving realm, Dao controlling realm, Dao attainment realm, six-dimensional universe, nine-dimensional universe, consolidation realm, divine mirror realm, eternal realm, immortal ascension realm, heavenly ascension realm, mortal destruction realm, pericelestial realm, transcendent realm, deity breaking realm, deity destroying realm, concept realm, eternity realm, critical boundary realm, boundless realm, void realm, heaven ascension. realm, transcendence realm, spacetime realm, small saint realm, great saint realm, ancient god realm, body sculpting realm, personality sculpting realm, soul sculpting realm, jump out of the universe, god emperor realm, divine clone realm, divine soul realm, level 1 to level 20, seamless realm, seamless path, divine spirit realm, fate chart realm, life spirit realm, primordial spirit realm, fate knowing saint, fate knowing god, swordsman realm, swordsman, great swordsman, sword, grandmaster, sword master, sword emperor, sword celestial, great sword celestial, sword saint, transcendent sword saint, sword god, transcendent sword god, common sword, unrestrained sword heart, sword transformation, mortal realm, heart sword, sword power, calm heart, focus. 9th level civilizations. Heartless, thoughtless, bodiless, soulless, Daoist, non-universe origin realm. Inside circle, break circle, draw circle, great Motian domain. Mental connection, Dao Ming, embodiment of freedom, 6 realms. Breaking realm, Dao gathering. Prying into the profound, understanding profound, life profound metaverse. Eternal heart, 1 to 6, ancient universe. Half-step sacred heart, true divine. Immortal realm, eternal immortal realm, supreme immortal realm, observing the dark universe. Boundless realm, quantitative change realm, qualitative change realm, half-step visualization realm, external appearance realm, internal perception realm, transcending time, time immortal, time controller, reincarnation walker, understanding profound. Seeing these realms, Zhou Xian was stunned. So many. Beside him, the sloppy old man said, "There are many realms and they are messy. In fact, many realms are redundant and there is no need for them to exist. However, because Pavilion Master Qingguan has reorganized them, we did not do them again." Zhou Xian said, "Who came up with these realms?" The sloppy old man said, "Strictly speaking, it should be Daoist." Zhou Xian could not help but say, "Is there something wrong with this? Came up with so many realms. Is there something wrong with its brain?" Daoist. The sloppy old man hesitated and then said, "Young master, Daoist moves the path of the great path, transcending everything. Be careful with your words." Zhou Xian shook his head, closed the ancient book and then said, "This is ridiculous." The sloppy old man smiled slightly. "Actually, it is still okay now. Pavilion Master Qingguan has already sent the realms she organized to the various realms, and now she has removed almost 70% of the realms. I have taken a look and I feel that it is very, very good." Speaking of this, he shook his head and smiled. "I have to say, this Qingguan is really an extraordinary person. Her talent really makes me admire her, the kind that I would prostrate myself in admiration." Zhou Xian smiled and then walked to the next bookshelf. He picked up an ancient book and looked at it. After a while, his expression gradually became solemn and soon he went to the next bookshelf. In this way, Zhou Xian looked at more than a dozen bookshelves in one go. This was Zhou Xian's current mood at the moment. The wide range of knowledge in these bookshelves, the depth of these books, deeply shocked Zhou Xian. In particular, some of the cultivation methods were so detailed that it made his scalp tingle a little. Zhou Xian turned to look at the sloppy old man. "These were all written by a dozen of you?" The sloppy old man nodded. "Yes." Saying that, he hesitated and then said, "Young master, is there anything that was not written well? If it is not written well, please give us a pointer or two." Later. Zhou Xian thought about it and then said seriously, "There are indeed many shortcomings." The sloppy old man hurriedly asked, "What shortcomings?" Zhou Xian thought about it again and then said, "Let's talk about this another day." The sloppy old man was speechless. Zhou Xian suddenly said, "How should I address you, senior?" The sloppy old man hurriedly said, "Young master, I don't dare to call you senior. You can just call me Zhou Xian." Zhou Xian nodded slightly. "Elder Xian, my father gave you over 100 universe veins a year, right?" Elder Xian nodded. "Yes. However, Sword Master would give more every time. Moreover, Sword Master would think of ways to help us obtain some of our academic materials. Not only that, Sword Master would also give us some elixirs to increase our lifespans. Sword Master originally wanted us to cultivate, and then he would provide us with cultivation resources. Unfortunately, we don't like to cultivate and only like to do academic research." Zhou Xian smiled and then he took out a storage ring and handed it to Elder Xian. Elder Xian glanced at it, and there were 4,000 universe veins in the storage ring. Seeing so many universe veins, Elder Xian's expression instantly changed. "Young master, this..." Zhou Xian smiled. "This is what you deserve." As he spoke, he took out another storage ring and handed it to Elder Xian. This is for those who follow you to do academic research. Elder Xian glanced at it and then he bowed deeply to Yi Xian. Thank you, young master. Yi Xian was slightly moved. Father really got a great bargain. These people were really geniuses. Although they didn't know how to cultivate, these people were extremely knowledgeable. 100 or 200 universe veins a year was really too little. However, he didn't immediately give a high price. This had to be done slowly. In any case, he wouldn't mistreat Elder Xian and the others. As if he thought of something, Yi Xian suddenly said, "Next, I will study these with you." As he spoke, he paused for a moment and then said, "I will also give you some pointers." The sloppy old man was stunned and then he hurriedly said, "That's great." Yi Xian glanced at the scene and took a deep breath. He decided to read more books. Pretending wasn't scary, what was scary was pretending to be cultured. P.S. Chapter 8. Some readers said that the explosion wouldn't exceed 8 chapters. What a joke. 8 chapters? Are you looking down on me? Those who said no more than 8 chapters, come out and apologize. Thank you. 7017K. Chapter 2287. Following Yi Xian's arrival, the Xian sect had undergone earth-shattering changes. All of them were filled with energy, because they could eat their fill and their salaries had increased. At that moment, the dozens of people in the Xian sect were full of energy. And Yi Xian would study with Zhou Xian and the others every day, writing books together. Of course, he would only watch and occasionally give some pointers. It must be said that Yi Xian admired Zhou Xian and the others a lot. Zhou Xian and the others didn't cultivate, but their knowledge was terrifying. These guys were proficient in astronomy, geography, space civilization, cultivation system, mystic arts. For example, they didn't cultivate, but they knew more about these realms than those who did. After interacting with Zhou Xian and the others, Yi Xian was deeply shocked. These people's knowledge was probably only second to Qin Guan. And during this period of study, Yi Xian also gained a lot. He now deeply believed that studying was useful. And Yi Xian also found that he seemed to like the feeling of reading. Cultivating one's mind. Reading could truly calm his heart, to think, to comprehend, to understand the world and the universe, to feel the thoughts of others. In life, there were many times when one should stop to calm his heart and settle down. Life wasn't just fighting and killing. Noon. Yi Xian was lying at the entrance of the Xian sect's main hall, holding an ancient book in his hand. The warm sunlight shone on his body, warming him up. The ancient book in his hand was called 36 Yin Yang Techniques. Yi Xian was enjoying it. At this moment, Zhou Xian walked over with a cup of tea. The ancient book in Yi Xian's hand suddenly turned into a human geography book. Zhou Xian walked to Yi Xian's side and bowed. "Young master, please have some tea." Yi Xian took the cup and took a sip, then smiled. "Elder Zhi, is there anything I can help you with?" Zhou Xian wanted to say something but stopped. Yi Xian smiled. "Just say it." Zhou Xian said, "Young master, we need some funds to buy some ancient books." Yi Xian was a little curious. "Ancient book?" Zhou Xian nodded. "That's right. Some ancient books recorded some unknown civilizations or ancient martial techniques. They have great research value." Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, "That's a good thing. I'll go with you. Don't worry about money, I'll deal with it." Hearing that, Zhou Xian was extremely excited. He immediately bowed deeply to Yi Xian and said with a trembling voice, "Young master, thank you." Yi Xian smiled and said, "What are you thanking me for? What you're doing is benefiting all living beings in the universe. It's a great merit, a great fortune, and the significance is great." Zhou Xian hesitated for a moment before he said, "Young master, are you willing to publicize the results of our research? And for free?" Yi Xian nodded. "Of course." Hearing this, Zhou Xian immediately bowed deeply. "Young master is kind." "That's great." Yi Xian grinned. "I intend to establish an academy and gather even more scholars to join us." As he spoke, he looked up into the sky and spoke softly. "All along the way, I noticed that countless cultivators are too vicious. Everyone starts fighting at the slightest disagreement, and it's either you or me who dies. This world shouldn't be like that. If everyone in the world reads as much as I do, then this world would be much better." Zhou Xian bowed deeply to Yi Xian once more. "We're willing to assist you, young master." Yi Xian smiled and then he gazed at the plaque above him. He thought for a moment before he said, "We'll establish an academy, an academy that strives to improve the vicious aura in the universe. There's no order or rules in the world, so it causes people to be impetuous and prioritize profit over everything. Our academy's objective is to establish a will for the universe, establish a life for all living beings, continue the techniques of the past sages and establish peace for all ages. Create order and establish peace. Zhou Xian hurriedly said, "That's great." Zhou Xian grinned. "Let's call it Guanxian Academy." Guanxian Academy. Zhou Xian nodded. Zhou Xian suddenly stood up. "Aren't we going to purchase ancient books?" "Come, I'll go with you." Zhou Xian hurriedly said, "Young master, please." In a carriage. Zhou Xian and the others didn't know how to cultivate, so wherever they went they would take a carriage, and it was the only carriage. This time, Zhou Xian only brought a young girl with him. This young girl was his disciple named Xianxia. He had just taken her in not long ago, and she almost starved to death the moment she arrived. Because of this, Xianxia was skinny, but she was in good spirits, holding an ancient book in her hand at all times. Zhou Xian and Xianxia sat in the carriage while Zhou Xian drove the carriage. This was specially arranged by Zhou Xian, hoping that Xianxia could learn from Zhou Xian. In Zhou Xian's heart, this young master was knowledgeable and wise. Xianxia sat opposite Zhou Xian looking a little reserved. Zhou Xian looked at Xianxia. Xianxia was about 15 or 16 years old, wearing a green robe. He was skinny but he was full of vigor. Zhou Xian smiled. "Don't be nervous." Xianxia nodded slightly but he seemed even more nervous. Zhou Xian glanced at the ancient book in Xianxia's hand, then asked, "What book are you reading?" Xianxia hesitated then said softly, "The Golden Mean." Zhou Xian smiled. "The book says that sincerity is the highest realm in life. Do you think it's right?" Xianxia thought for a while then said, "Yes." Xianxia said seriously, "Only sincerity can guide the world, establish the foundation of the world and know the evolution of heaven and earth. The path of sincerity will lead to the supreme realm. Young master, if you want to establish your heart for the universe, establish your life for all living beings, inherit the supreme knowledge for the saints, establish peace for all ages, create order and build peace, you must be sincere. If you treat the universe with sincerity, the universe will treat you with sincerity." Zhou Xian was silent. Xianxia hesitated then said, "Am I wrong?" Zhou Xian smiled. "You are right. However, you have to remember one thing. The hearts of people in this world are very complicated. People need to be sincere to each other, but they also need to be vigilant. As the sages said, we must not have the heart to harm others, but we must be vigilant. We should treat good people with sincerity, but we should treat bad people with sincerity." Saying that, he smiled but didn't say anything. Xianxia hesitated then said, "To treat bad people we should use kindness and love to influence them, right?" Zhou Xian was silent. Xianxia glanced at Zhou Xian cautiously. "Am I wrong?" Zhou Xian thought for a while then said, "What if kindness and love can't influence them?" Xianxia's right hand suddenly clenched the ancient book in her hand. Her eyes were full of determination. "Kill them! Kill them!" Zhou Xian was stunned. He was somewhat shocked. Zhou Xian looked at Xianxia in front of him. She still looked so weak, but her eyes revealed a trace of ruthlessness. Zhou Xian was silent. His intuition told him that this young lady's future was not simple. Studying was not scary, but it was scary to become a bookworm. No matter how knowledgeable one was, they would still be pedantic. Zhou Xian thought for a while then said, "Do you want to cultivate?" Xianxia blinked. "Can I?" Zhou Xian nodded. "If you want, you can." Xianxia was still hesitant. "But cultivation costs money. Our college is very poor." Zhou Xian laughed. "It's okay. If you want to cultivate, I will take care of the money." Xianxia blinked. "Can I?" Zhou Xian nodded. "Yes." Xianxia stood up and bowed deeply to Zhou Xian. "Thank you, young master." Zhou Xian smiled and did not think much of it. But what he did not know was that his little act of kindness today would lead to the birth of a peerless empress in the future. Xianxia Empress. Dual cultivation of literature and martial arts. That era was also known as the most glorious era of the universe after the Three Swords era. Countless cultivators were fortunate to be born in that era because after the Three Swords era ended, the vast universe fell into a long period of darkness. Martial arts collapsed and civilization was interrupted. That era was known as the darkest era in history. Until the appearance of this Xianxia Empress, Yi Xian would never have thought that his small act of kindness today would reap great benefits for his descendants even though he did not reap the fruits of his kindness. After chatting with Yi Xian, Xianxia was no longer as nervous. He would often consult Yi Xian on some questions, including academic questions and martial arts questions. As for academic questions, Yi Xian would naturally bluff. To be honest, in terms of academic knowledge he was not as good as Xianxia. This made him feel ashamed. Of course, although he was not as knowledgeable as Xianxia, he had regained his confidence in cultivation. The two of them chatted happily. Of course, most of the time it was Xianxia who consulted Yi Xian. Unknowingly, the three of them arrived at one of the three major cities in the universe of gods, Immortal City. The universe of gods had 4 worlds and 3 cities. The 4 worlds were Hill World, Mountain World, Mysterious World, and Yunjia. The 3 cities were Immortal City, Heavenly Speech City, and Eternal City. Yi Xian looked at the Immortal City in front of him. He had to admit that it was really grand. The gates of the city walls were bigger than the entire mysterious sect hall. Xianxia looked at the Immortal City in front of him curiously. After the 3 of them entered the city, they instantly became a strange scene. Ordinary people. On both sides of the street, some people looked at Yi Xian and the other 2 curiously. In this era, basically everyone cultivated. In other words, ordinary people would only appear in those low-level worlds. Completely ordinary people like Yi Xian and the other 2 were very rare to see. As Yi Xian concealed his aura in the eyes of others, he was also an ordinary person. Xianxia looked around curiously. "Young master, why are they all looking at us?" Yi Xian said with a smile. "Because they are all very powerful while we are not." Xianxia blinked and didn't seem to understand. Soon the 3 of them came to a small building. After entering the small building, Yi Xian found that the small building was a bookstore. In this bookstore there were some ancient books. In this bookstore there were many people reading books. Moreover, some of them were time immortals. "Young master, please wait for a moment. I will go and find the owner," Zhou Xian said. After saying that, he walked towards a distance. Yi Xian looked around curiously. In the end, he brought Xianxia to a bookshelf. He took down an ancient book and started reading. Xianxia also wanted to read, but Yi Xian quickly put it away. "You can't read this." Yi Xian blinked his eyes. "Why?" Xianxia blinked his eyes. Yi Xian said solemnly, "Only people like me who are calm and have a pure heart will not be influenced by such ancient books." Xianxia giggled. "Young master, you're not serious at all." Yi Xian was speechless. At this moment, Zhou Xian walked back with a bitter expression. Yi Xian asked, "What's wrong?" Zhou Xian smiled bitterly. "If we want to see their boss, we have to make an appointment. I just made an appointment. Their boss might only see us after 3 days." Yi Xian frowned slightly when he heard this, and then he glanced at the surroundings. He noticed that all the people who were reading had someone serving them warmly, but there wasn't a single person around the 3 of them. He chose to ignore them. Xianxia gently pulled on Yi Xian's sleeve and said softly, "Is it because we are poor that we are not valued?" Yi Xian was silent. "How should I answer you?" P.S. Chapter 9. Was it over? Bullsh *. Ending with just 9 chapters? Was that considered a breakthrough? Wouldn't that be fooling the readers? Zhonglai. Continue. 7017K. Chapter 2288. Xianxia looked at Yi Xian waiting for his answer. Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, "You're right." Xianxia lowered his head slightly. Yi Xian rubbed Xianxia's head gently and said with a smile, "Don't be sad, this is the reality of society. When you're weak they look down on you. When you're rich they envy you." Xianxia nodded. "Understood." At the side, Zhou Xian sighed softly. Yi Xian said with a smile, "It's okay. Elder Xian, you're knowledgeable, so it's normal that you're not good at these things. However, I suggest you go out and have a look. The universe is vast and you'll gain a lot from it. As the saying goes, reading 10,000 books is not as good as walking 10,000 miles. Zhou Xian bowed slightly. "I've learned something." Yi Xian smiled, then he walked to a steward in the distance. The steward glanced at Yi Xian with a calm expression. "What's the matter?" Yi Xian said with a smile. "Can I see your boss?" The steward shook his head. "No. You have to make an appointment first." Yi Xian smiled slightly, then opened his palm, and a storage ring silently flew to the steward. The steward was stunned when he saw it. 100 universe veins. Yi Xian smiled slightly. "Please inform him." The steward's originally cold face suddenly showed a trace of a smile. "Young master, please wait a moment." With that he turned and left. Not long after, the steward returned with a smile. "Young master, the club master invites you. Please go upstairs." Xian said with a smile. "Thank you." The steward smiled slightly. "You're welcome." Xian led Xianxia and Zhou Xian upstairs. Xianxia suddenly pulled Xian's sleeve. "Is this what they mean by money makes the world go round?" Xian smiled slightly. "Let's put it another way. This is the wisdom of the world." Xianxia frowned slightly. "The ways of the world." Xian nodded. "To walk in this society, apart from possessing great strength, you also need to learn the ways of the world. Read more books, do more things." Xianxia nodded thoughtfully. Soon the three of them arrived at the second pavilion. Within the second pavilion, the three of them saw an old man. The old man's hair and beard were completely white. At this moment he was holding a thick ancient book and reading it with great interest. Beside Xian, Zhou Xian cupped his fists. "Dojo Master Yu, nice to meet you. I am Xianzong's Zhou Xian." Headmaster Yu put down the ancient book and glanced at Zhou Xian. "What's the matter?" Zhou Xian hurriedly said, "I heard that your academy has the 12 songs history scrolls. We would like to buy them for research. I wonder if Headmaster Yu is willing to sell them?" Dojo Master Yu immediately shook his head. "I'm not willing." Zhou Xian was stunned. He didn't expect the other party to reject him so directly. Zhou Xian naturally did not want to give up just like that. He immediately said, "Master Yu, the price is negotiable." Dojo Master Yu glanced at Zhou Xian. "Negotiable? Then tell me, how do you want to negotiate?" Zhou Xian hesitated for a while and then said, "You can state a price." Dojo Master Yu shook his head. "You can't afford it." Zhou Xian. Beside Xian, Xianxia said softly, "Young master, does he think that we are poor?" Xian nodded. Xianxia frowned slightly. "If we are rich, he will treat us differently, right?" Xian smiled. "What do you think?" Xianxia was silent for a while before saying, "Young master, why do you respect master so much? Master's poor. But I feel that you really respect him." Xian chuckled. "Because your young master was poor in the past. Moreover, Elder Xian is knowledgeable. He is worthy of respect." As he said, he walked to Zhou Xian. Zhou Xian smiled bitterly and was about to speak when Xian smiled. "You are using the wrong method." Zhou Xian was stunned. "Using the wrong method?" Xian turned and walked to Dojo Master Yu. He took out a storage ring and placed it in front of Dojo Master Yu. There were 100 universe veins in it. Dojo Master Yu glanced at it and frowned. "You want to humiliate me?" Xian took out another storage ring. There were 1,000 universe veins in the storage ring. Dojo Master Yu stared at Xian with undisguised anger. "What kind of person do you think the old man is?" Xian didn't speak. He silently took out another storage ring and placed it in front of Dojo Master Yu. This time there were 10,000 universe veins in the storage ring. Dojo Master Yu was slightly stunned. He clearly hadn't expected that the young man in front of him could take out 10,000 universe veins. However, he was still very tough. Dojo Master Yu stared at Xian with a mocking smile. "The old man hates people like you who think you can do whatever you want just because you have some money." Xian suddenly took out a storage ring and placed it on the table. There were 1 million universe veins in the storage ring. 1 million. How terrifyingly huge was this wealth? It could be said that even if he sold books for 100,000 years, he wouldn't be able to obtain 1 million universe veins. When Dojo Master Yu saw the 1 million universe veins in the storage ring, it was as if he had been struck by lightning. He was petrified on the spot. 1 million universe veins. 1 million. He had never seen so many universe veins in his entire life. Xian looked at Dojo Master Yu with a calm expression. Dojo Master Yu gulped and then said, "Young master, please sit. Let's talk in detail. Servants, serve tea. Serve my top-grade immortal spirit tea." Xian suddenly put away the storage ring on the table and turned to look at Zhou Xian and Xianxia. "Let's go." Zhou Xian nodded. "Okay." The three of them left. Dojo Master Yu was stunned. Then he said angrily, "You dare to play with me?" Xian turned to look at Dojo Master Yu and frowned. "Play with you? Did I?" Dojo Master Yu stared fixedly at Xian with killing intent in his eyes. Xian said seriously, "We came to buy books. Now we won't buy them. Is there a problem?" Dojo Master Yu's expression suddenly became calm. No problem. At this moment, 3 mysterious experts suddenly appeared behind Yi Xian's group. Their auras weren't weak. They were all time walkers. They hadn't even reached the time immortal realm. Yi Xian glanced at the 3 of them and then he looked at Dojo Master Yu. Dojo Master Yu, what's the meaning of this? We are all scholars. Do you want to use force? Dojo Master Yu was expressionless. Leave the storage ring and leave. Robbery. Zhou Xian couldn't help but say angrily, how can you do this? This is simply indecent. Shameless. Shameless. Poor Zhou Xian. Even though he read a lot of books, he didn't have many words to curse at. Yi Xian sighed softly. Dojo Master Yu, we are all scholars. We should be reasonable. Do you think it's appropriate for you to do this? The 3 mysterious experts behind Yi Xian were about to make a move, but they were stopped by Dojo Master Yu. Dojo Master Yu looked at Yi Xian with apprehension. Is this guy pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger? Thinking of this, Dojo Master Yu was shocked and broke out in cold sweat. This isn't normal. Can an ordinary person take out 1 million universe veins so casually? Can he? That was obviously impossible. Only those top forces could take out 1 million universe veins so easily. Most importantly, after his people had appeared, this young man was actually so calm and composed. Why is he so calm? Why? Strength. Or background? Thinking of this, Dojo Master Yu completely calmed down. At this moment he was sure that this young man was definitely pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. He wanted to show off. Thinking of this, Dojo Master Yu suddenly glared at the 3 experts. Who let you come out? Get lost. The 3 powerhouses were shocked when they heard this. What the hell? Dojo Master Yu suddenly flew into a rage. What are you looking at? Get lost. The 3 experts looked at each other. They were still confused, but they didn't dare to ask. They immediately retreated. Next to Yi Xian, Zhou Xian frowned. He was puzzled. Xianxia glanced at Yi Xian beside her and covered her mouth as she chuckled. Yi Xian looked at Dojo Master Yu with a calm expression. Dojo Master Yu looked at Yi Xian and smiled. Young master, it was just a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. Saying this, he took out a storage ring. This is the 12 books of ancient history. I'll give it to you as a gift to make a friend. Yi Xian hesitated and waved the storage ring in his hand. Don't you want to rob me? 1 million universe veins. Dojo Master Yu said seriously, what are you talking about, young master? We are all scholars. How can we act like robbers? Do you think the old man has read so many books for nothing? The old man has justice in his heart. The old man's values are very correct. Yi Xian was speechless. This idiot didn't follow the rules. What should I do? I can't act tough anymore. Dojo Master Yu quickly said, Young master, I did offend you just now. Please forgive me. I'll bow to you. I'm sorry. Saying this, he bowed deeply to Yi Xian. After bowing, he bowed to Zhou Xian. I didn't treat you well just now. Please forgive me. I'm very sorry. Seeing this, Zhou Xian quickly said, No, it's okay. It's a small matter. You don't have to be like this. Dojo Master Yu smiled. You should be someone who has a lot of knowledge. I have some basic ancient books here. I wonder if you're interested in studying them together? Hearing this, Zhou Xian was overjoyed. Ancient books. Dojo Master Yu nodded. Yes. Zhou Xian bowed. Thank you. Dojo Master Yu hurriedly pulled Zhou Xian to the bookshelf. On the spot, Qiao looked at Yi Xian and smiled. Young master, the development of the story seems to be different from what you imagined, right? Yi Xian smiled. What should the original plot be like? Qiao thought for a while and said, I think he wanted to rob young master. But young master suddenly showed great strength and robbed him instead. Not only did he benefit from it, but it was also justifiable. He wouldn't have any psychological burden. Yi Xian glanced at Qiao. He didn't say anything, but he was shocked. Qiao smiled. It seems that reading is useful. Because by reading, one's brain will be sharper. One can analyze things and predict blessings and misfortunes, right? Yi Xian nodded. That's right. Saying so, he looked at Dojo Master Yu and said softly, This enemy has suddenly become smart. Why am I suddenly not used to it? I really miss those enemies who wanted to kill me at the slightest disagreement. Not only did they want to kill me, but they also wanted to kill my entire family. When Yi Xian spoke, he did not lower his voice. Hence, Dojo Master Yu could hear him clearly. At this moment he was sweating profusely. Damn it. This idiot just wanted to act cool. Luckily he didn't act cool. Too scary. P.S. Chapter 10. What is an outburst? Is less than 10 chapters considered outburst? I hate those authors who say that they are outburst after a few chapters. Seriously. From today onwards I will set a benchmark. Anything less than 10 chapters is not outburst. 7017K. Chapter 2289. Club owner. You saw them off in person. Yi Xian and the other two left the library. Watching Yi Xian and the other two leave, Master Yu felt relieved. Meanwhile, an old man walked over to Dojo Lord Yu's side, and the old man hesitated for a moment before he said, Dojo Lord, should we investigate that young man? Master Yu shook his head. No need. The old man was puzzled. Why? Master Yu said softly. He's someone we can't afford to offend. What's the difference if we investigate him or not? The old man said in a low voice. I don't see anything special about that young man. Master Yu said softly. That's why you're working for me. Then he turned and left. The old man was speechless. In the distance, Zhou Xian was holding the 12 volumes of history as if he had obtained a treasure. He was beaming with joy and excitement along the way. Xianxia, on the other hand, looked around curiously. She had never been to such a prosperous place before. Therefore she was very curious about everything she saw at this moment. Suddenly Yi Xian brought the two of them to a noodle stall. Yi Xian smiled. Boss, give me 3 bowls of noodles and 3 eggs. In the distance the boss shouted and started to get busy. Xianxia looked at Yi Xian curiously, his eyes filled with curiosity. Yi Xian smiled. Why are you looking at me? Xianxia giggled. Young master, I suddenly feel that you're very handsome. Yi Xian gently tapped Xianxia's head. Don't tell me the truth. Zhou Xian. Xianxia covered her mouth and giggled. Soon 3 bowls of noodles were served. Looking at the 3 bowls of noodles in front of him, Yi Xian suddenly fell silent. Xianxia said softly, What's wrong? Yi Xian smiled. I miss my sister. Yiling. He hadn't seen Yiling for a long time. Xianxia hesitated and said, Can I be your sister too? Yi Xian looked at Xianxia and said with a smile, My sisters are very powerful. Xianxia's expression dimmed as he lowered his head slightly. Yi Xian smiled and said, Are you not confident? Xianxia looked up abruptly. Yes. Yi Xian laughed. Xianxia suddenly said, Brother young master, I will definitely be the strongest among all your sisters. Yi Xian blinked. The difficulty is a little high. Xianxia asked seriously, Is it very high? Nodding his head, Yi Xian took out a pair of chopsticks and placed it before Xianxia with a smile. You don't have to be the best, but you can make it unique. After a moment of silence, Xianxia said, I understand. After that, she picked up the bowl of noodles in front of her and started to eat. Although Xianxia looked gentle and quiet, his eating could be called wild. A bowl of noodles was already finished in less than 3 breaths of time. Her eating speed was comparable to Tianqi's. This was ridiculous. She was starving. After eating, Xianxia noticed Yi Xian was looking at her and she blushed. Yi Xian smiled and said, Do you want more? Xianxia nodded and put up a finger. Yi Xian smiled and said, Boss, give me another bowl. Xianxia smiled. 10 bowls. Yi Xian was taken aback, then shook his head and smiled. You are too hasty. Soon 10 bowls of noodles were served. Yi Xian looked at Xianxia, who was wolfing down the food in front of him, and his heart suddenly became very calm. Is cultivation a battle? Does cultivation mean seclusion to comprehend? Does cultivation mean that I have to constantly force myself? Yes. The above 3 methods were his cultivation methods all along. But at this moment he suddenly felt that life was also cultivation. The fickleness of human nature was also a kind of cultivation for the heart. If he didn't calm down, how could he discover so many beautiful things around him? Just like at this moment, looking at Xianxia wolfing down the food, he felt that it was very beautiful. At this moment, the sound of footsteps suddenly interrupted Yi Xian's thoughts. Yi Xian turned around and saw a woman walking towards him slowly from not far away. The woman had a voluptuous figure and her steps were light. She wore a snow-white dress with a purple chiffon on the outside, and a dark purple belt around her waist. Her eyes were like water, but there was a touch of coldness in them, as if she could see through everything. Behind the woman there were 12 golden armored guards. These 12 golden armored guards had a profound aura, and they were all Rebirth Walker realm. Rebirth Walker realm. Needless to say, this was very scary. It should be noted that the highest realm that Zhou Xian knew was mysterious awareness. Her strength was extraordinary. Zhou Xian looked at the woman walking towards him and he suddenly felt very happy. It was obvious that this beautiful woman had discovered his uniqueness in this vast crowd, and had come to make friends with him. Zhou Xian sighed in his heart. Although he had tried his best to keep a low profile, outstanding people were outstanding no matter where they went. Just like gold, it would shine no matter where it was. At this moment the woman walked to Zhou Xian and Xianxia's side. Zhou Xian was about to get up, but the woman suddenly looked at Xianxia. Are you willing to follow me? Zhou Xian was stunned. Not here to look for me? What the hell? Xianxia was also stunned. It was obvious that she had not expected this woman to be here to look for her. Around them people exclaimed, "It's the immortal ancient heaven. The immortal ancient heaven. The young city lord of the immortal ancient city, the most talented person in the immortal ancient city, and the youngest mysterious awareness realm cultivator in the immortal ancient city." At the same time she was one of the two beauties of the immortal universe. In the eyes of countless people she was a perfect fair-skinned, rich and beautiful woman. She had the looks, the strength and the family background. At this moment when the crowd found out that it was the immortal ancient heaven, they all looked at Xianxia with envy. It was obvious that the young city lord of the immortal ancient city had taken a fancy to Xianxia. Xianxia was stunned by Xian Gutian's question. After a while she came to her senses and hurriedly looked at Zhou Xian. Zhou Xian smiled. This lady thinks highly of you and wants you to follow her. Are you willing? Xianxia got up and bowed slightly to Xian Gutian. Thank you for thinking highly of me, but, as she spoke she looked at Zhou Xian. I want to follow Big Brother Young Lord. Big Brother Young Lord. Hearing this, Xian Gutian frowned slightly. She turned to look at Zhou Xian. Can we talk in private? Zhou Xian nodded. All right. Xian Gutian turned around and walked to the side. Zhou Xian stood up and followed her. Meanwhile he suddenly felt his sleeve tighten. When he turned around he saw Xianxia staring at him nervously. Zhou Xian grinned. Don't worry. Xianxia hesitated for a moment and then she let go. Zhou Xian and Xian Gutian walked towards the distance. At this moment, more than a dozen divine senses locked onto Zhou Xian. Zhou Xian frowned slightly. Xian Gutian turned his head and glanced at the guards. The guards immediately retracted their divine senses and slightly bowed. Xian Gutian turned to look at Zhou Xian. My apologies. Zhou Xian glanced at Xian Gutian and felt slightly surprised. Xian Gutian suddenly said, that girl's physique isn't simple at all, and her future accomplishments are limitless. However, she needs a larger platform. Without a larger platform, her natural talent and physique will be buried. She stopped moving when she spoke up to this point, and then she turned around to look at Zhou Xian. I'm not looking down on you, but I feel that I can give her better. If my words offended you, then I apologize. Zhou Xian grinned and then he turned to glance at Xianxia. At this moment Xianxia was looking at him nervously. Obviously she was afraid that he would sell her out. Zhou Xian smiled and then he looked at Xian Gutian. I'm Zhou Xian, what's your name? Xian Gutian looked at Zhou Xian. Xian Gutian. Zhou Xian smiled. Miss Yao, you're right. She really does need a larger platform. So it might be better for her to follow me. Xian Gutian's eyes narrowed slightly when she heard this, and she just stared at Zhou Xian as if she wanted to see through Zhou Xian. Zhou Xian grinned. I didn't mean to offend you. I appreciate Miss Good intentions on behalf of my Xianxia. As he spoke he bowed slightly and then he turned around and left. Xian Gutian remained silent. Zhou Xian walked over to Xianxia and Zhou Xian, and then Xianxia hurriedly grabbed Zhou Xian's right sleeve. Zhou Xian smiled. Let's go. Xianxia's expression instantly relaxed when she heard this. The three of them stood up and left. Zhou Xian suddenly asked Xianxia, do you know that girl from just now? She's very formidable. If you follow her then you'll be able to live a good life in the future. Xianxia fell silent for a moment and then she said, I know. Zhou Xian was a little curious. Then why didn't you agree? Xianxia fell silent for a moment and then she said, if you follow her, you'll be invincible in the universe of gods. If you follow Big Brother Young Master, you'll be invincible in the entire universe. Hearing this, Zhou Xian stopped and turned to look at Xianxia. At this moment he suddenly felt that this girl in front of him was somewhat unfamiliar. Xianxia lowered her head slightly and she was somewhat nervous. After a moment Yi Xian grinned. Don't be nervous, it's good to have ambition. Hearing this, Xianxia's heart instantly relaxed. The group left. In front of the noodle stall, Xian came to the table and sat down, and a bowl of noodles was quickly served. The boss of the noodle stall was about to cry. Such a big shot came to eat noodles? Xian looked at the noodles in front of her for a long time, and then she suddenly moved her chopsticks. At this moment an old man appeared beside Xian, and the old man bowed slightly. Miss, that person doesn't know how to appreciate kindness. Do you want this subordinate too? Xian glanced coldly at the old man, and the latter's expression instantly changed and he hurriedly shut his mouth. Xian slowly closed her eyes. From this moment onwards, you don't have to follow me. The old man was horrified and his voice trembled. Miss? This? Xian spoke softly. I don't want to have stupid people by my side. If I stay with stupid people, I'm afraid that I'll become stupid as well. As she spoke, she waved her hand, and it didn't take long for two mysterious experts to take the old man away. Meanwhile, a beautiful woman slowly walked over to Xian side, bowed slightly and said, they didn't leave the city and went to Antique Street. I sent people to escort them in secret so no one caused trouble for them. Xian turned to look at the beautiful woman. Aunt Lon, what do you think of that youth? The beautiful woman fell silent for a moment and then she said, ignoring strength, his mental state and bearing are at the top of the world, and he might even surpass you. There are 3 points. Firstly, with your status, anyone who sees you would be nervous and timid, but this youth is calm and composed when facing you and he doesn't seem nervous at all. Secondly, with your beauty, ordinary men would feel a sense of inferiority when seeing you, but when he spoke to you, he dared to look you straight in the eye, and he was neither servile nor overbearing. She paused for a moment and then she said, this is a person with an extremely strong heart. Xian ate a mouthful of noodles and then she said, and the third point? The beautiful woman said, when he spoke to you, we enveloped him with our divine sense, and he revealed a displeased expression. This means that he is an extremely powerful person because only experts would dare to act like that. If it was a weak person they would be nervous and apprehensive. Xian suddenly put down her chopsticks. There is one more thing. The beautiful woman bowed slightly. Miss, please speak. I'm listening. Xian looked at the noodles in front of her. He eats noodles very naturally. To what extent? It's so natural that it seems like he eats it on a regular basis. She stood up and said, this is a youth who walked out from suffering. At the same time, his identity isn't simple at all. He was probably specially sent out by a powerful power to gain experience. When she spoke up to this point, she turned to look at the stall owner. Did they not pay for their noodles just now? The stall owner was stunned and then he hurriedly nodded. Those 3 really hadn't paid for their noodles when they left just now. Xian opened her palm and a small cloth bag slowly floated over to the stall owner. I'll pay for their noodles. With that she turned around and left. P.S. 11 chapters. Those readers who said they didn't last more than 10 chapters, come out and apologize, vote and tip. Be more self-aware. Thank you. 7017K. Chapter 2290. Immortal Ancient City Antique Street. To put it bluntly, this antique street was filled with street stalls. This place was a mix of good and bad people. There were all kinds of people here. Some people could find good things here but most of them were scammers. Coming to this place was suggested by Zhou Xian. He wanted to see if there were any ancient books here. When they came to Antique Street, Yi Xian frowned slightly. This place was a little dark. The antique street wasn't spacious. There were some ancient buildings on both sides. The lighting was dim and there was a kind of gloomy and oppressive feeling. Yi Xian looked into the distance. The street was quite long. On both sides of the street, there was a stall every 100 feet or so. These stall owners were very mysterious. Because they were all dressed in black robes, it was as if they were shameful. The 3 of them walked down the street. Along the way, Yi Xian glanced around and didn't see anything good. At this moment, Zhou Xian quickly walked in front of a stall. On that stall there was a worn-out ancient book. This ancient book's surface was already damaged. One look and one could tell that it had a long history. Zhou Xian picked it up and took a look. He instantly smiled as if he had found a treasure. Yi Xian took a look and found that this ancient book was just an ordinary record like a diary. Zhou Xian turned to look at Xianxia and smiled. This kind of thing can best reflect the true situation of that era. After saying that, he looked at the stall owner. Stall owner, how much is this? The stall owner raised a finger. 1 universe vein. Yixian frowned slightly. This wasn't worth 1 universe vein. But Zhou Xian directly handed the stall owner a universe meridian. Yixian looked at Zhou Xian. Zhou Xian smiled. Knowledge should be respected. Yixian was silent. Knowledge. He knew a few knowledgeable people. Sister Nian Tingguan. They were all very powerful, but their power came from their strength. Would people who were purely knowledgeable be respected if they didn't have powerful strength? Yixian shook his head and smiled. The three of them continued forward. When he was about to reach the end, Yixian suddenly stopped. He turned his head to look at the stall at the side. On the stall he saw a rusty iron sword. Yixian was a little curious. He walked in front of the stall owner and picked up the rusty iron sword. As soon as he picked it up, the iron sword suddenly shattered into pieces. Yixian was stunned. What the hell? At this moment the stall owner looked up at Yixian. It's broken. The stall owner was a woman wearing a long black robe. Her face was covered, revealing only a pair of eyes. Yixian said solemnly, "It's broken." The stall owner said calmly, "Should I compensate?" Yixian was speechless. The stall owner said, "Not much, just 100,000 universe veins." As she spoke, she stretched out her jade-like hand. It was very white and very tender. Yixian understood. This was a trap. Extortion. Yixian smiled and said, 100,000 universe veins. Isn't that too little? The stall owner looked at Yixian and didn't say anything. Yixian opened his palm, and a storage ring slowly floated in front of the stall owner. Inside the storage ring there were 1 million universe veins. 1 million. The stall owner's left hand suddenly clenched. Yixian smiled and said, "Miss, do you think it's not enough?" "If it's not enough." As he spoke, he took out another storage ring and placed it in front of the woman. This time there were 5 million universe veins in the storage ring. 5 million. Seeing this, the stall owner's expression instantly changed. At this moment she knew that she had offended someone she shouldn't have. She hurriedly pushed the 2 storage rings back to Yixian and said, "Sir, it's just a misunderstanding." Yixian looked at the stall owner and didn't say anything. The stall owner hurriedly got up and bowed. "It's a misunderstanding." Yixian blinked. "I'm not listening." The stall owner. Yixian turned to look at Xianxia and said with a smile, "Choose an item from the stall." After saying that, he turned to look at the stall owner. "There's no problem, right?" The stall owner hurriedly shook her head. "Oh no." Yixian smiled and said, "Xianxia, choose." Xianxia hesitated for a moment and then picked up a small pot. Yixian smiled and said, "Let's go." After saying that, he put away the 3 storage rings and left with Xianxia and Zhou Xian. The stall owner immediately heaved a sigh of relief. "We've met a tough one." After Yixian and the others left the antique street, a black-robed man suddenly blocked the 3 of them. Wealth shouldn't be exposed. Just now, Yixian had taken out those 3 storage rings, so he was obviously being targeted. Yixian looked at the black-robed man and said with a smile, "What's the matter?" The black-robed man said hoarsely, "Leave the storage rings and leave." Yixian blinked. "How dare you?" The black-robed man slowly clenched his right hand. "I want to risk it. If I risk it, maybe I can have a beautiful future." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly dashed forward and threw a punch at Yixian. However, just as he punched, a sword directly pierced his forehead. Boom. The black-robed man was nailed to the spot by this sword, unable to move. Instant kill. The black-robed man looked at Yixian with eyes full of disbelief. "You?" Yixian sighed softly. "Do you think I'm very weak?" The black-robed man. Yixian opened his palm and the black-robed man's storage ring flew into his hand. He glanced at it. There were only a few thousand universe veins in the storage ring. Seeing this, Yixian was speechless. Too poor. Yixian turned to look at Zhou Xian and Xianxia. "Let's go." After saying that, he turned and left. After buying a lot of materials in the city, Yixian and the other 2 left. After all, Guanxian Academy urgently needed a lot of materials. After returning to the academy, Yixian went to the library and began to read. He was immersed in the sea of books. As for the miscellaneous matters of Guanxian Academy, they were all handled by Zhou Xian. After having money, Zhou Xian began to recruit people and rebuild Xian Academy. After all, the current Xian Academy was too simple. In the library, Xian was reading those realms that Qin Guan had organized. There were hundreds of realms, but after Qin Guan organized them, there were less than 20 realms. Xian. Daoist. Xian was researching this realm. To research this realm he had to know Daoist first. Daoist could write the fate of the universe. In layman's terms, this pen could dictate the fate of all living beings. Although it was just an executor, it could indeed change one's fate. Which cultivator didn't want to dictate their own fate? Daoist. Thinking of this, Xian suddenly whispered, "Brother Bai, can we talk?" Milky Way. In the small room a cold voice suddenly sounded, "Talk my ass. Do I know you well?" In Xian Academy Xian didn't get any response. Seeing this, Xian frowned slightly. "How about I get Qing'er to talk to you?" Boom. In front of Xian the space suddenly trembled violently. Then an illusory pen appeared in front of Xian. Daoist. Xian narrowed his eyes. In the next moment he got up and smiled. "Brother Bai, hello." Daoist calmly said, "What do you want to talk about?" Xian thought for a moment then said, "I want to reach the Xian realm." Daoist looked at Xian. "Then go cultivate. Why are you looking for me?" Xian thought for a moment then said, "Miss Qin Guan said in the book that to reach the Xian realm, one must feel the trajectory of fate. Only then can one know the profound. But I can't feel the trajectory of fate." Daoist's voice was indifferent. "If you can't feel it, then continue cultivating." Xian thought for a moment then said, "Brother Bai, I'll let Qing'er come. You don't seem that friendly to me." Saying that he was about to call Qing'er. Daoist suddenly said, "Wait." Xian looked at Daoist. Daoist was silent for a moment then said, "I don't think that's necessary, right?" Xian said in a low voice, "But you don't seem that friendly to me." Daoist was silent. At this moment it really wanted to hit someone. But it still forced itself to hold back. As Daoist, no one knew better than it how terrifying the person behind this guy was. Daoist tried to calm itself down and said softly, "Talk, we can talk." Xian blinked. "I didn't threaten you, did I?" Daoist was silent for a long time then said, "No." Xian nodded. "That's good. These days I read a lot of books. I think a person should be reasonable. Do you think I am reasonable?" Daoist. Xian smiled slightly. "Brother Bai, let's get back to business. These days I have been trying to sense the path of fate, but I have not found anything, which is quite distressing. Brother Bai, as Daoist, the traveler of the path of fate, you should have a way, right?" Daoist was silent for a moment then said, "As far as I know, to reach the profound understanding realm, you must first become a reincarnation walker, and you are not even a time controller now, crossing two big realms. Isn't it a bit inappropriate?" Xian said seriously, "Brother Bai, I think you are wrong. I don't cultivate realms. I have no interest in cultivating realms. The reason why I want to know about the profound understanding realm is because I am interested. As for realms, again, don't use realms to measure me." Daoist was silent for a long time. "If you don't have an invincible sister." It did not continue. It really wanted to kill this pretentious guy in front of it. "Don't cultivate realms? Is that even human? What the hell?" Xian suddenly laughed. "Even if I don't have an invincible sister, I still have an invincible father." Daoist. Xian said with a smile, "Brother Bai, let's get back to business." Daoist was silent for a long time then said, "I can help you, but I will only help you once. In the future you can't look for me. What do you think?" Xian was silent for a moment then said, "No." Daoist. Xian said with a smile, "Brother Bai, don't be so prejudiced against me. If we can be friends, I will be grateful in the future if you make things convenient for me. For example, if I say to Qing'er, you are a very good friend of mine." Daoist suddenly trembled. The next moment an illusory long brush appeared in front of Xian. "I, clone, holding this brush, can use 30% of my strength. A brush tip can cut 100,000 galaxies in the universe, can control all ancient Daoist and Dharma, above all living beings in the universe, only below the divine book and the ancient character. With the divine book, any known universe can be unimpeded. From now on, as long as you want, you can reach any realm at any time, of course only for half an hour." At this point it paused then said, "If the divine book and the ancient character don't appear, you are invincible." Xian asked, "What if the divine book and the ancient character come out?" Daoist was silent for a moment, then said, "Your sister is invincible." Yi Xian. The Milky Way. In the depths of a mountain range, a woman was walking in the mountains. The woman was wearing a plain dress. At this moment it was drizzling, but the woman in the plain dress was not wet at all. The mountain was surrounded by clouds like a fairyland. Soon the woman in the plain dress arrived at the top of the mountain. There was a stone house at the top of the mountain. The woman in the plain dress walked to the door of the stone house. She opened the door. Inside the stone house sat a man. In front of the man was a desk. On the desk there were two thick books. On the left book 2 words could be vaguely seen, invincible. Next to the 2 books, there was a piece of white paper. On the paper were 6 big black words. And next to the paper there was a pen case without a pen. In the man's right hand there was a cup of water. Seeing the woman in the plain dress, the man smiled. "Finally you found it." The woman in the plain dress looked at the man. After a long time, her expression suddenly became ferocious. Her whole person like a madman roared, "Why are you so weak? Why?" Boom. In an instant, except for this stone house, the mountains were all destroyed. And this stone house, inch by inch, was annihilated. The man was silent. The woman in the plain dress stared at the man. "Why? Why can't you be stronger? Why?" The man did not answer. The woman in the plain dress slowly closed her eyes. "You have greatly disappointed me." After saying that, she turned around and walked to the front of the mountain. She raised her head to look at the depths of the starry sky. Her eyes gradually became a bit dazed. "Brother, I am so panicked. I don't want to be invincible. I really don't want to be invincible. Brother." Panic. This was the second time in her life that she panicked. The first time was because she lost her brother, and this time. Why panic? Because invincible. She was really invincible. Invincible to the point that no one could pose a threat to her. And the person she saw just now was her current last hope. Of course, she did not think that that person could kill her. She only thought that that person just now perhaps could pose a little threat to her. A little threat. Just a little threat would be enough. However, she was disappointed. Completely disappointed. When she saw that man, her last trace of hope was shattered. So weak. She could not imagine that person was actually this weak. A light breeze blew. The woman in the plain dress's dress fluttered high in the wind. The rain was getting heavier and heavier. The woman in the plain dress stood at the top of the mountain, feeling very lonely. At this moment, the woman in the plain dress slowly closed her eyes and said softly, "Brother, when you are invincible in the world, I will go and kill the 2 of them." As she spoke, she raised her head and looked into the depths of the starry sky. Her expression gradually turned cold, and there was a trace of disdain in the corner of her mouth. "Invincible? Who dares to call themselves invincible in front of me?" P.S. Chapter 12. Those who said that my outburst wouldn't last more than 5 chapters, please come out and vote. Thank you. Dare I ask my brothers, did you give your all today? Please call me the 12th watch egg. If you still call me an idiot today, I will fall out with you. Thank you. Finally, tickets. Where are your tickets? 7017K. Chapter 2291. Daoist. Yi Xian looked at the pen in his hand and fell into silence. External object. Super external object. One stroke of the pen could cut through hundreds of thousands of galaxies and universes. As long as he wanted to, he could reach any realm. He tried, and he directly reached the knowing profound realm on the spot. After reaching the knowing profound realm, he glanced around, and at this moment he seemed to see the fate of all living beings. However, he did not know whether it was because of him or Daoist, but he could not see the results. Yi Xian looked at the fate of Xianxia and soon he frowned. Xianxia's fate was actually hazy and he could not see it clearly at all. Yi Xian was silent. This girl's future would be very extraordinary. Retracting his thoughts, Yi Xian's gaze once again fell on Daoist. Although he obtained this pen, he became more and more cautious. This kind of external object was very easy to rely on. He could not rely on this object too much, but he could use this object to improve himself. After all, external objects were external objects. If one day, Daoist took back this pen, wouldn't it be a pain in the ass? He could now use this pen to improve himself. After thinking it through, Yi Xian activated Daoist and directly let his realm reach the knowing profound realm. After reaching the knowing profound realm, Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. He was carefully feeling everything around him and he could feel the fate trajectory. To feel and then to familiarize. Fate trajectory. Because of Daoist's help, he could very clearly feel the fate trajectory of everything around him. However, he could not interfere. To be more accurate, he could not forcibly interfere. He could only do his best. Zhou Xian began to slowly study this knowing profound realm. Knowing profound realm, knowing profound realm. His goal was to be able to reach the knowing profound realm in the future without Daoist. Just like that, Zhou Xian spent the rest of his time in Xian Academy. Other than cultivating, he was reading. With Zhou Xian's financial support, Xian Academy also underwent earth-shattering changes. The size of the entire main hall doubled, and not only that, Xian Academy also built a few more libraries. In addition, Xian Academy also recruited some people. Of course, they were all ordinary people. Only ordinary people would come to this academy. Early in the morning, Zhou Xian lay quietly in front of the library of books. The sunlight shone down and covered his body with a thin layer of golden gauze. Zhou Xian held an ancient book in his left hand and a cup of spirit tea in his right. On his waist was a brush without a case. Zhou Xian watched with great interest, unable to extricate himself. At this time, a woman slowly walked to Zhou Xian's side. It was Xianxia. Xianxia brought the cup of spiritual tea to Zhou Xian's side. "Brother young master, the tea should be changed." Zhou Xian looked at Xianxia and smiled. "Thank you." Then he put down the teacup in his hand and took Xianxia's tea. Xianxia hesitated and said, "Brother young master, I need more and more money for my cultivation." Zhou Xian suddenly opened his palm and a storage ring flew in front of Xianxia. There were 1,000,000 universe veins in the storage ring. Xianxia was stunned. Zhou Xian continued to read. "Take it and cultivate." Xianxia trembled. "Why?" Zhou Xian looked at Xianxia. "What, why?" Xianxia looked at Zhou Xian. Why are you so good to me?" Zhou Xian blinked. "Didn't you call me brother young master? I am the big brother. Isn't it normal for a big brother to be good to a little sister?" Xianxia was stunned. Zhou Xian smiled. "Go and cultivate." Xianxia was silent for a long time. With that, she picked up the storage ring and left. Zhou Xian looked at the departing Xianxia. He shook his head with a smile and continued to read. When the sun was about to set, Zhou Xian suddenly walked to Zhou Xian's side. "Young master." Zhou Xian collected his thoughts and looked at Zhou Xian. Smiling, he asked, "What's wrong?" Zhou Xian said excitedly, "Young master, I just learned that Immortal Ancient City's Immortal Treasure Pavilion is going to auction a precious ancient book." Zhou Xian frowned. "Precious ancient book?" Zhou Xian nodded. "Divine Dao Code. This was written by Miss Qingguan. It contains the world's divine techniques, Dao techniques and Dharma spells. It is extremely precious." "Qingguan." Zhou Xian fell silent. Zhou Xian said excitedly, "Young master, are we going to auction it?" Zhou Xian fell silent for a long time before he nodded. "Yes." Zhou Xian was extremely excited. "I'll go with you, young master." Zhou Xian glanced at the surroundings and then he shook his head. "I'll go by myself. You need to control the situation here." Zhou Xian hesitated for a moment and then he said with slight pity, "All right." Zhou Xian smiled. "Don't waste it. I'll show it to you first when I buy it." Zhou Xian was overjoyed. "Really?" Zhou Xian nodded and said with a smile, "Yes." Zhou Xian immediately bowed deeply and then he said hurriedly, "I'll prepare a carriage for you, young master." As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. "A carriage?" Zhou Xian was stunned. Zhou Xian arrived at the entrance and Zhou Xian had already prepared a carriage. Zhou Xian bowed slightly. "Young master, please." Zhou Xian hesitated for a moment and then he said, "A carriage it is then." As soon as he finished speaking, he boarded the carriage and it quickly disappeared into the distance. The entire universe of gods was shocked when they found out that the Celestial Treasure Pavilion was going to auction the Divine Path Codex. Qingguan. Who was that? She was the pavilion master of the Celestial Treasure Pavilion, and the most extraordinary woman in the world. Before this, the physical cultivation of the universe was in a mess, and it was Miss Qingguan who reformed the physical cultivation of the realms. However, that was not the main point. The main point was that she had created some new realms. The Profound Awareness realm originally had 6 small realms, but after Miss Qingguan's modifications, only 2 remained. The first was the Profound Awareness realm and the second was the Profound Insight realm. The most terrifying thing was that she had deleted the realms above the profound insight realm, and created a whole new realm. The first person in history. That was the evaluation of Qin Guan by the universe of gods. And now, the Celestial Treasure Pavilion was actually going to auction the Divine Path Codex that she had written. In an instant, the entire universe of gods was shaken. Then, countless super forces and experts rushed to the ancient immortal city. No one knew what the Divine Path Codex was, but everyone knew that it was definitely not an ordinary divine item. That was because it was written by Miss Qin Guan. In an instant, as countless people rushed into the ancient immortal city, the entire city became extremely lively. At this time, Zhou Xian also entered the ancient immortal city with his carriage. After asking around, he came to the Celestial Treasure Pavilion. Celestial Treasure Pavilion. The Celestial Treasure Pavilion in the ancient immortal city had a total of 9 floors, and it was very grand and luxurious. At this moment, there were already some experts gathered around the Celestial Treasure Pavilion. These were all people who could not enter. To participate in this auction, one had to have a personal asset of 5 million universe veins. When Zhou Xian arrived at the entrance of the Celestial Treasure Pavilion with his carriage, countless people looked over. Carriage? What was that? When Zhou Xian walked out of the carriage, everyone's expression became strange. Because Zhou Xian had concealed his aura and because of Daoist he looked like an ordinary person. He was wearing a very ordinary green robe. He held an ancient scroll in his hand, and there was a brush without a case hanging from his waist. He looked really shabby, especially that brush. It was so cheap that it didn't even have a case. Zhou Xian ignored the gazes of the surrounding people and walked toward the Celestial Treasure Pavilion. When one was alive, one shouldn't care about the gazes of others because one lived for oneself, not for others. Of course, the most important reason was that, in his opinion, he was richer than the people watching him. Looking down on me? What a joke. Only with strength could one truly ignore the gazes of others because one was more awesome than them. When Zhou Xian arrived at the entrance of the Celestial Treasure Pavilion, a woman obstructed Zhou Xian's path. She was around the age of 20, wore a white dress and had long hair that fluttered in the wind. She had a gentle bearing and a faint smile on her face. The woman glanced at Zhou Xian and grinned. "Young master, I need you to show me your assets." Assets? Zhou Xian was stunned. What assets? The woman smiled and explained, to participate in this auction, one's assets must be at least 5 million universe veins. 5 million universe veins. Zhou Xian nodded slightly. So that's how it is. As he spoke, he was about to withdraw his spatial ring when an exclamation resounded from the side. "It's the eldest young miss of the immortal ancient heaven." The immortal ancient heaven. Everyone looked to the side. A woman was walking over slowly from afar. Her clothes were white like snow, and her expression was cold like an iceberg. All the men here held their breaths when they saw her. She was too beautiful. She was definitely the dream lover of countless men. But it didn't take long for them to lower their heads and not dare to look her in the eye. Right at this moment, immortal ancient heaven suddenly gazed at Zhou Xian, and she was slightly stunned when she saw Zhou Xian. Zhou Xian grinned. "Miss Ancient Heaven." Everyone here was stunned when they heard this. This young man knows immortal ancient heaven? Immortal ancient heaven walked slowly over to Zhou Xian. "You've come to participate in the auction as well?" Zhou Xian nodded. "Yes. I've come to have a look." Immortal ancient heaven pondered deeply for a moment and said, "Together? Together?" As soon as these words were spoken, all the cultivators here were flabbergasted. The immortal ancient heaven is actually inviting this young man? Zhou Xian grinned. "It would be my honor." Immortal ancient heaven nodded slightly, and then she glanced at the brush on Zhou Xian's waist. She hesitated for a moment before she said, "What's that?" Zhou Xian blinked. "Do you want to know?" Immortal ancient heaven nodded. Zhou Xian grinned. He moved closer to immortal ancient heaven, and then he bent down and whispered by her ear, "Daoist. Daoist." Immortal ancient heaven was stunned. At this moment she'd completely overlooked the fact that Zhou Xian was so close to her. On the other hand, all the cultivators here were stunned. So close. They're actually that close. At this moment Zhou Xian blinked. "You are the only one I can tell." As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and walked towards the entrance of Immortal Treasure Pavilion. The pretty woman glanced at Zhou Xian and Immortal Ancient Heaven. She hesitated for a moment, but she didn't ask Zhou Xian to reveal his wealth in the end. Immortal ancient heaven fell silent for a moment before she followed him in. Ancient immortal city. In the main hall, a beautiful woman was drinking tea while an old man was whispering something in front of her. A long time passed before the beautiful woman frowned slightly. So close? The old man nodded. She asked, "What's Xiao'er's reaction?" The old man hesitated for a moment before he said, "There's no reaction at all." The beautiful woman's face instantly fell, and a long time passed before she slowly closed her eyes. "Keep observing." The old man nodded and left silently. The beautiful woman's gaze gradually turned icy cold. Not just anyone can match up to my Xiao'er. Chapter 2292. After entering the Celestial Treasure Pavilion, his field of vision immediately widened. He was now in a huge square that could hold over 100,000 people. At the center of the square was a circular platform that was dozens of meters long and wide. At this moment there were 6 peerless beauties dancing on the platform. These 6 women all had hot figures. They wore very little inside, revealing their stomachs and thighs. Their clothes were made of thin muslin, and as they danced, many parts of their bodies were faintly discernible. It was extremely seductive. However, they were not vulgar. Especially the woman in the lead who wore a veil. Although one could not see her face clearly from her silhouette, she was definitely a devastatingly beautiful woman. Especially her figure, it was truly hot to the extreme, enough to make countless men commit crimes. Zhou Xian could not help but take a few more glances at the veiled woman. Of course, his eyes were clear and there was not the slightest bit of lust in them. Ever since he started studying, his thoughts had become pure and those kinds of perverted thoughts were very, very few. When Zhou Xian and Xianxia entered, there were already some people gathered in the hall. There were not many, only a few dozen people. At this moment, their arrival attracted the gazes of many people in the hall. Of course, most of them were looking at Xianxia. Xianxia's expression was calm. She was already used to such gazes. After all, she was beautiful. At this moment, an old man suddenly slowly walked before Xianxia and slightly bowed. "Miss Xianxia, I am the branch president of the Celestial Treasure Pavilion, Nanqing. If you need anything, just let me know." Xianxia slightly nodded. "Many thanks." Nanqing slightly smiled. "Miss Xianxia, your seat is in the first row at the front of the circular platform. Follow me." With that, he turned around and led the way. Xianxia followed, but she only took 2 steps before she stopped and turned to look at Zhou Xian in confusion. "Why are you not leaving?" Zhou Xian blinked. "He said that your seat is in the first row, but he didn't say that mine is in the first row as well." Xianxia slightly shook her head. "You will sit with me." With that, she slightly paused and looked at Nanqing. "Is that all right?" Nanqing glanced at Zhou Xian and smiled. Of course. Just like that, Zhou Xian and Xianxia sat in the first row. Meanwhile, the gazes of many people had started to descend onto Zhou Xian. Curiosity and jealousy. After all, everyone knew that the immortal ancient heaven never treated men well. Yet now she was actually sitting side by side with a man. More and more people curiously sized up Zhou Xian. Zhou Xian suddenly laughed and said, "Like a dagger on my back." Xianxia turned to look at Zhou Xian. "Are you afraid?" Zhou Xian shook his head. "No." After a moment of silence, Xianxia said, "You are very confident, confident to the point that I am quite shocked." Zhou Xian smiled and didn't say anything. Instead, he looked at the women dancing on the stage. To be more precise, he was looking at the veiled woman. In addition to admiration, there was a hint of other emotions in his eyes. He had Daoist, which could see through all concealment techniques. Xianxia looked at the 6 women dancing gracefully on the stage and suddenly said, "Are they beautiful?" Zhou Xian was slightly startled and then he smiled and said, "Are you talking about the dance or the person?" Xianxia's expression was calm. "The dance and the person." Zhou Xian smiled slightly. "The dance is beautiful, but the person is even more beautiful." Xianxia was expressionless. Zhou Xian continued to admire the dance. Righteous and pure people saw everything as pure just like him. At that moment, Xianxia suddenly said, "Are they beautiful or am I beautiful?" After she finished speaking, she was stunned. Why did she ask that? Why did she compare herself to these dancers? Thinking to there, she frowned and felt somewhat displeased at her slip of the tongue. However, she had already spoken and could not take it back. Zhou Xian smiled and said, "Miss Yao, this question of yours is not easy for me to answer. Can I not answer it? Xian turned around to look at Yi Xian. Is it difficult to answer? Yi Xian thought for a bit and then he said, Miss Yao, a beautiful body is nothing more than a bag of skin. A noble soul is what is truly noble. Miss Yao, do you know why I like you? Like me? Xian was stunned. Was this a confession? Her heartbeat suddenly sped up but it quickly returned to normal. At that moment Yi Xian suddenly smiled and said, because Miss Xian has a noble soul. Xian looked at Yi Xian. What do you mean? Yi Xian smiled slightly. I once saw this line in an ancient book. True experts are willing to use the freedom of the weak as their boundary. After speaking, he looked at Xian and said with a smile, when I first met Miss liked Qingqiu and wanted to take her as a disciple. However, you respected our intentions. Moreover, you gave us sufficient respect. I feel that this is how experts should be. An expert who is willing to reason with those who are weaker than him and respect the wishes of those who are weaker than him. I feel that this is what it means to be a true expert. A person who bullies the weak and fears the strong no matter how strong he is not worthy of being called an expert. Xian remained silent for a long time and then she said, Young Master Yi, you are a different kind of man. Yi Xian was speechless. Right at that moment a young man walked over. He walked directly in front of Xian and smiled slightly. Miss Yao, long time no see. Xian nodded slightly and didn't say anything. The young man didn't feel embarrassed and he smiled slightly. Did Miss Yao also come for the Divine Tao Code? Xian nodded. Her expression was calm and even slightly cold. The young man smiled. It seems like our objectives are the same. Xian glanced at the young man. Young Master Yen might be speaking nonsense, but who hasn't come for the Divine Tao Code? This wasn't just coldness, it was impoliteness. The young man's expression instantly froze and he felt quite embarrassed. However, he quickly returned to normal and then he suddenly gazed at Yi Xian and changed the topic. He smiled. Brother, who are you? Yi Xian grinned. Yi Xian. The young man smiled. So it's Brother Yi. May I know where Brother Yi is from? Where is he from? Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, I'm from Green City. The young man pondered for a moment and then he frowned slightly and said, Green City? Yi Xian nodded. The young man shook his head. I've never heard of it. Yi Xian smiled. It's just a small place so it's normal that you haven't heard of it. As for me, I'm just an ordinary scholar. The young man smiled. Brother Yi, you're being too humble. How could someone who obtained Miss Xian favor be an ordinary person? Xian beautiful brows knit together when she heard this. Obviously she was quite displeased. Yi Xian glanced at Xian and grinned. I'm honored as well. Xian instantly rolled her eyes at Yi Xian when she heard this. Her gaze was extremely flirtatious and even she hadn't noticed it. Everyone in the surroundings had witnessed this scene. At this instant all of them were stunned. It wasn't normal. Their relationship is definitely not normal. As for young Master Yen, he was stunned when he saw this, and then his expression instantly turned gloomy and cold. He was jealous. It wasn't a secret that he pursued Xian, and the world looked favorably upon him as well. Because he was the young master of Skyward City, Yan Bianyue. Their backgrounds were on par and they were a perfect match. Could be said to be a match made in heaven. However, only he knew that Xian didn't have any feelings for him and he didn't care. After all, Xian treated all men in the same way. But at this moment he noticed that Xian treated him in a completely different way. It was ambiguous. Yan Bianyue's expression was terrifyingly gloomy, and he didn't conceal it at all. Xian immediately frowned when she noticed Yan Bianyue's expression. At this moment she suddenly felt quite regretful. She knew that her gaze from before had caused many to misunderstand. Moreover, it might cause endless trouble for Yi Xian. Meanwhile, Yan Bianyue glanced at Yi Xian and then he turned around and left. He was naturally not stupid enough to flare up here. Because if he did, then he would first offend the Immortal Treasure Pavilion, and then he would offend Xian. However, he wasn't in a hurry because he had plenty of opportunities. Once Yan Bianyue left, the gazes of everyone here towards Yi Xian and Xian had become strange. Yan Bianyue suddenly said, We'll leave together once it's over. Yi Xian blinked. Do you intend to protect me forever? Yan Bianyue gazed at Yi Xian and fell silent. He's quite improper, but why don't I dislike him at all? Yi Xian suddenly smiled. It's fine. Xian Gutian spoke softly. Young Master Yi, you're so mysterious. I've always been underestimating you, right? Yi Xian smiled. Which aspect are you referring to? Strength or background? Xian Gutian gazed at Yi Xian. Both? Yi Xian gazed at Xian Gutian and smiled. Do you want to know? If you do, then I'll tell you. Xian Gutian looked Yi Xian in the eyes. Are you willing to tell me? Yi Xian smiled. If it was anyone else, then I wouldn't be willing. But if it's you who asked, then I'm willing. Xian Gutian frowned slightly. Why? Yi Xian smiled. Because Miss Tian treats me with sincerity, so I naturally have to treat you the same. Xian Gutian fell silent for a moment and then she said, I want to know. Yi Xian moved closer to Xian Gutian and whispered, No one in this universe can take a single strike from me. Xian Gutian was stunned. Yi Xian smiled and then he looked up at the dance on the platform. Xian Gutian remained silent for a moment and then she asked, What about your family background? Yi Xian's expression was calm and he had a faint smile on his face. The number one clan in the universe. Xian Gutian gazed at Yi Xian and didn't say anything. Is he lying to me? Xian Gutian slowly closed her eyes. He didn't know. At this moment she couldn't tell if Yi Xian was telling the truth or lying. At this moment the president of the Celestial Treasure Pavilion branch, Nanqing, suddenly walked onto the round stage, and the 6 dancing women immediately stopped. As the 6 women retreated, the veiled woman suddenly glanced at Yi Xian with a smile in the corner of her eyes. Nanqing glanced at everyone here. At this moment there were over 100 people gathered here. Quite a lot. Nanqing smiled and said, Thank you all for participating in this auction. Today we will only be auctioning one divine item, the Divine Tao Code written by the chief editor of Celestial Treasure Pavilion. As for this item, I haven't seen it before. But the pavilion master once said that anyone who cultivates this code will be invincible in the same realm. Fighting above realms will be as easy as drinking water and they can even fight above 2 realms. At this point he paused for a moment and then he said, Without further ado, let's begin. The starting price is 5 million universe veins. 5 million universe veins. Hearing this, Yi Xian sighed softly. Qingguan. She really was a super rich woman. If he took this divine Tao code to the various universes and auctioned it off, he didn't dare to think about it. Now he knew why Qingguan was called Qingguan. Qingguan's money box. Temple Master? No, he felt that calling him Jar Master was more appropriate. In just a short while the price had already reached 15 million universe veins. Yi Xian blushed with shame when he saw this. When Dong Linan left, he had left him some universe veins. Including the ones he had obtained from the Fey Sky Clan and the Celestial Mausoleum, he had less than 7 million universe veins. He had spent some before, so he still had about 6 million left. Clearly this divine Tao code was not fated with him. Of course, this was under normal circumstances. Under abnormal circumstances, was it necessary for him to buy the divine Tao code written by Qingguan? Was it necessary? Naive. Soon the divine Tao code had reached 2,000 universe veins. It had to be said that this was a sky-high price. In the hall there were fewer and fewer people bidding. The one who bid the most was Yan Bianyue. This was because the Yan clan also did business and it was very big. In the universe of gods, their business was only second to the Celestial Treasure Pavilion, so they were very rich. When Yan Bianyue bid 2,800 universe veins, no one dared to bid any more. Seeing that no one was bidding, Nanqing was about to bring down the gavel. At this moment Yan Bianyue suddenly stood up. He looked at Yi Xian and said with a smile, Young Master Yi, I noticed that you didn't bid even once. You didn't come here to freeload, did you? I was just joking. Don't be angry. Xian Gutian frowned when he saw Yan Bianyue targeting Yi Xian. He was about to speak when Yi Xian suddenly smiled and said, Young Master Yan, are you targeting me because of Lady Xian Gutian? Yan Bianyue was stunned. Obviously he hadn't expected Yi Xian to be so direct. Everyone here was stunned as well. They hadn't expected that Yi Xian would be so direct. Because they were able to discern that Yan Bianyue was targeting Yi Xian because of Xian Gutian. However, they usually didn't expose it. Yi Xian smiled faintly. He looked at Xian Gutian and said seriously, Miss Gutian, she is a very, very good woman. Any man's heart would be moved by her, including me. After all, everyone loves beauty and I can understand that. However, young Master Yan, if you're thinking of using such a despicable method to attract her attention or even make her like you, then you're gravely mistaken. Lady Yao isn't an ordinary person. She's a person with her own mind, and she's a person with a noble soul and character. Your actions are very despicable, and despicable people usually have despicable characters as well. As he spoke, he grinned. I'll be frank. I'm not as rich as you, nor am I as strong as you, nor do I have a powerful background like yours. If you think that you can feel superior by stepping on me and show off in front of Lady Yao, then you've won. Everyone in the surroundings was speechless. Translator. Transin editor. Transin, let me ask you a question. If the only sword ends, then will all of you read other books every morning?